morning, colleagues. I hope you had a great breakfast today and you are energized for this second and last session for the education community of practice. This session will explore how to advance public sector accounting education and professional capacity building in general, and will focus on the current challenges and opportunities in public sector accounting education, also exploring how new tools and techniques can facilitate the teaching process, and the integration of emerging topics such as sustainability reporting and artificial intelligence into teaching, as well as discussing strategies for continuous professional development for accountants in the public sector. Today we have with us Paolo Fedele. He's Associate Professor in Accounting and Management in the University of Udine, Italia. Sandra Cohen, Professor of Accounting, Athens University of Economics and Business from Greece. And we have George Herbert, Head of ACCA Consults. Both me and my colleague Natalia Konovalenko will be moderating this session. And without further ado, I will give the floor to Paolo to start with the first presentation. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank you, the organizer, for inviting me and for organizing all of this. And I would like to thank you guys for being here and taking the time to listen to our presentation. So what am I going to do today? What's the topic of my presentation? I would like to present you some implications, some findings, some aspects of the Italian case concerning public sector accounting education, to see how Italy compares to other international cases. And finally, I would like to extract some lessons, some solutions that might work for Italy, but I think they might be of interest for the discussion on public sector accounting education in general. Now, where do we start? Well, first of all, I will very briefly review some contributions that are international in international literature concerning public sector accounting education. And I will extract what I call the public sector accounting education paradox. From there, I will ask myself the question, hey, how does Italy compare to this international trend? And point number 4, I would put Italy case, the Italian case, in the light of something very important and dramatic that we're living in Italy, which is the need for generational change. I will show you some figures about Italy that are incredible in terms of aging stuff that makes public sector accounting education even more important and relevant. From there, I will propose 2 solutions that might be my work for Italy, but they probably might fuel a little bit of debate also for other countries. And finally, I will make a reflection on the role of academia in all of this. Now, let's start from the very beginning. Well, there's a lot now about public sector accounting education. There are a lot of contributions in top international journals. I'm just showing you a bunch. Obviously, there are much more. Some of them are studies on the UK, some studies are on Germany. There is a very important study by PULSAR that compare 6 countries. But if you review all the different findings that these studies contain, there are some commonalities. There are some findings that are convergent. And what are these findings? Well, everybody agrees that there is this paradox in public sector accounting education. Everybody agrees that public sector accounting education is fundamental in 2 ways. First of all, it's important to supply timely, and remember timely, qualified public accountants to public sector organization. And please, I stress timely, and you will see later why timely is important. And second, public sector accounting education contributes in a fundamental way to grant and maintain the quality of the knowledge that the accountants have, and therefore the entire public sector system has. Now, everybody agrees that it's important, but at the same time, in most countries, we found these three problems that I highlight on the right of these slides. First of all, there is a scarce presence in university syllabuses, in syllabi, of public sector accounting education. It's important, it's fundamental, but few universities teach public sector accounting courses. First part of the paradox. Second, there is the so-called research practice gap. Even when there are courses, the courses are mostly legalistic or pretty theoretical, and so they do not train public accountants that are ready to operate. And there is a problem in the like of the timely that I was highlighting before. And finally, there are some alternative sources of public sector accounting education, mostly the National School of Administration, but they lack somehow scale. What do I mean? Like in Italy, we need a lot of public sector accountants. We have 8,000 municipalities. Every municipality has a public sector accountant that is needed of almost every municipality. Some are very small that they can share one. But the scale that the National School of Administration has is not enough to train timely all of them. Therefore, you understand that this paradox, on one side, the relevance, on the other side, the common problem that several countries present is the big paradox of public sector accounting education. Now let me move to Italy. Now, how does public sector accounting education appear to be in Italy? Well, first of all, we need to clarify one element. What is public sector accounting education? What should we teach? Well, as you see in the left side of the slide, the accounting systems in Italy are pretty diverse within the public sector. Why? Health sector organization, public universities, quangos and not departmental public bodies, for example, agencies, the Inland Revenue agencies, and state-owned enterprises, they all use accrual accounting. On the other hand, the territorial governments, municipalities, region, which are the intermediate level, government, central government, they use the so-called harmonized accounting. Harmonized accounting means that you do both cash-based and accrual accounting. So they do a cash-based budgeting, a cash-based report, and at the end of the fiscal year, they also produce an income statement and a balance sheet. So it's a very complex and dual system that operates in a very coordinated way. But also for the organization that use accrual accounting, they are not all the same. For example, the income statement of a public university or the income statement of an healthcare sector organization are very different. The bookkeeping rules are different. So what I'm saying, you understand that it's not easy to define what we should teach to public accountants, okay? There is a variety of stuff. And that explains partly why universities sometimes have problems, because there is not one topic. There is public sector accounting education. There are several streams of it. But beside this statement, in 2023, with some colleagues, we undertook the little challenge of understanding what's the status of public sector accounting education in Italy. And these are the main results that you see on the right. We reviewed the syllabi of 86 universities, okay? Well, we couldn't review all the syllabus of every course, otherwise the article would have been published in 20 years. But we review all the courses in which there are those topics: accounting, management, public law. And we discovered that only 16% of these courses, degree courses, include some public sector accounting education course program. So there are a lot of program, 800, 900, but only 16% has a course on public accounting. That surprisingly, most public sector accounting teaching is not within course that talk about public administration, but just course that talk about accounting. And finally, that everybody agreed again that there is, once again, the research practice gap. You don't teach a lot of public sector accounting, but when you do it, whoever takes that course is not ready to operate. And again, let me stress again, this is a problem in the light of the timely. Now, we need to put the Italian case in a bigger picture. And I really ask everybody to look at these slides because the number in these slides are surprising, also worrisome for the Italian public sector, okay? Now, a recent study has highlighted the number that you see on the left. The average age of public employees in Italy is around 50 years old, okay? The country is getting old in general, but public administration staff is significantly old, okay? Second, as you see, the average age became higher and higher over the year, okay? So generational change didn't happen fast enough to put up with this situation. And the big thing is that by 2033, more or less, 1 out of 3 public employees could retire. Now, you understand that losing 1/3 of the public workforce in 10 years is potentially a earthquake for the public sector. You either shut down services or you do something, okay? That number, to me, is scary, but unfortunately is in line with the demographic trend of the country. Now, what this got to do with public sector accounting education? Well, got to do what I'm saying on the right. First of all, obviously, with those numbers, a crazy, massive generational change is needed. But this is easier to say than to do. Why? Well, first of all, public sector is not anymore attractive as it used to be in Italy a couple of decades ago. Meaning, a couple of decades ago, the dream of several people was to work in the public sector, okay? There was a safe job, comparatively good condition, and so it was one of the jobs to look for. Now, it's not anymore the case, especially for Generation Z, for younger people, that give value to different stuff such as work-life balance, diversity of contents of work, so a lot of stuff. But this problem of not being very capable to attract young people is even worse for public sector accountants. Why? For a very simple reason. In a small municipality, the person in charge for the financial affair, the public sector accountants, the municipality accountants, makes the same money that all the other people in his category, but has much more responsibility. Remember, harmonized accounting. You have 2 systems. You got to run 2 accounting systems. You have a lot of responsibility. You make the same money. So within the general problem of public administration not being able to attract young talents, you have a bigger problem for public sector accounting. If you add to this problem what we call research teaching, the research practice gap, you understand that we have again a potential very problematic situation. You have less and less people that want to work for the public sector. You have less and less people, even less, that want to be public accountant. And on the other hand, the few that want to be, and that we really thank for that, are not ready to operate when they graduate. So we're really risking a massive shortage, okay, of public sector accountants in Italian public administration, especially in the one that are mid-size or small size, okay? So this is why the Italian case is very peculiar in terms of public sector accounting education, and it's relevant. But I think that this situation is not only associated to Italy, but some other European countries are in a similar situation, although the numbers are not so dramatic. Now, what to do with that, okay? What are possible solutions? Well, one reflection that I gotta propose is that, yes, I am an academic, I work in a university, but if these are the problem, recruitment, generational change, simply restructuring the syllabi of university and making public sector accounting courses more interesting, more attractive, newer, is not gonna be enough. There's something more. That's why I propose here two strategies, two grand strategies. One that I call Grand Corp strategy that might work at the nationwide level, and another one that I call strengthening public sector accountant development that can work also at the intermediate level that can be arranged, for example, at the regional level. I depart from the one on the right, the Grand Corp strategy. Well, what is a Grand Corp? Well, you know, Grand Corp are specialized professional families within the public sectors that are distinct from the rest of the public sector due to their specific knowledge, due to their relevance, okay? Obviously, famous example are diplomats, a famous example are certain higher tier of the public sector. Now, one provocative reflection could be, could public accountants become a Grand Corp, meaning a distinct professional family within the overall public sector, whose rules of engagement and recruitment and training are different? So what I'm proposing, for example, the recruitment of public sector accountants could work like the recruitment of Grand Corp members in France or in other countries work. So you have a distinct status within the public sector. You apply and you know your recruitment process, but when you're hired, you don't go directly to a PSO to work, but you undergo a training program, long, 1 year, under a common national knowledge framework that is organized by the National School Administration in cooperation with universities. And you stay there 1 year, and then at the end of that period, based on the performance ranking of the test that you undergo during that period, you are allocated to a public administration. This could be a solution. Obviously, there are risks to this solution because creating a Grand Corp means altering the balance of power within the different components of the public sector. But this could be one. The other one can be applied also to intermediate level, meaning can be an experiment that is be done at the more local level. Let's say that within one regions that in Italy are the intermediate level, the regional government commit to a non-sporadic recruitment plan for the public sector in general and for public accountant, not spot, but organic and plan beforehand. If possible, you make the retribution package more attractive, but not necessarily something easy to do. But at the regional level, universities of that regional system can commit to restructure their curriculum and to build what I called an educational pipeline, meaning having a bachelor, a master, an executive master on the issue of public administration or public sector accounting education, so that you have people ready, so that there is a recruitment plan in place and people are ready. Obviously, another thing that was suggested by an association of public accountants was to have a sort of program for those employees that are at the end of their career. Right now in Italy, public accountants or any public employees that has a role of responsibility spend the last years scrambling with operational stuff. One thing that might be created is an end-of-path career. In as much, in the last 2 years of your career, you do not focus so much on operation, but you focus on mentoring the person ready to operate that has been created by that educational pipeline. This has not been done in Italy, also for shortage, so everybody's needed to carry the day-by-day operation, but this could be a proposal. And finally, what we propose is also a structured onboarding program. Right now in Italy, once you're recruited, you're mainly say, okay, that's your desk, you sit down, and I'll tell you what to do eventually. We lack a structured onboard program, which would be the ceiling point of this strategy on the left. I'm also finishing because I committed myself to something that is normally difficult for me, to not speak too much, okay? So I promised that I would do this in 20 minutes, and now only 10 seconds are left. So I failed my mission by very little, okay? But not too much. So I will finish at the minutes 21, and I'm gonna feel very happy for what I accomplished this morning. You know that at every conference, when someone is gonna tell you, here comes a brief presentation, you know that a big problem is starting, you know? Now, 20 minutes, I'll stick to 20 minutes. One final reflection, which is the following. Within the university, we say a lot. We play a fundamental role in public sector accounting education. We need to modernize our curricula. We need to modernize the way we teach public sector accounting education. And most of the colleagues that are here are at the forefront of doing that, meaning they are the champions of doing that. Not saying, just saying, because it's true. But we have a problem in public university and in universities in general that I'm highlighting in these slides. More and more nowadays, university needs to compete in the international market of research, which means you need to publish on international journals, which means you need to recruit people that are capable of publishing articles in international journals. International journals tends to be far from the daily operation of public sector accountants. They want reflection, hopefully, with some exception, and some of the exceptions are represented in this room. They want more theoretical reflection on what is behind the accounting system, what we call in the academia the critical perspectives on accounting. The problem is, if people are paid, are required, are pressured to produce theoretical reflection on critical perspective on accounting, it might be complicated to provide the type of ready-to-go public sector accountants that we need to provide the public sector with a timely supply of enough public accountants. This is an overall reflection that, as an academic, I need to do. In the area in between, there are the few international journals that are instead trying a very complex operation of being rigorous under the theoretical point of view, but trying to be close to those contents that a public sector accounting education needs. But this is not an easy challenge that some of the colleagues that are editors are undertaking. So I almost made it. I thank you for your attention, and I'll do what's very complicated for me, which is to zip up and don't talk anymore.
Thank you very much, Paolo. And you were actually on time because we normally start at 17 minutes, the timer. So those 3 minutes, you were perfectly fine. So now we're gonna hear from Sandra on the Greece experience, please.
So, good morning. It is my great pleasure to be with you today. And I would like to thank Arman and Natalia for this invitation. I think that my talk is highly related to what we have discussed yesterday afternoon in the first session. And I will also follow suit what Paolo said about education. But now I'm going to focus more on training, on vocational training for the existing public servants. So let's start with the agenda. My talk is about touching upon the challenges to create an ideal profile of a public sector accounting savvy public servant. And in doing that, I will split my analysis in 2 streams. The first is about the existing public servants and vocational training that is needed. And on the other hand, we have prospect public servants for which they undergo an academic education. And I will try to give you an overview of some European experiences, complementary to what Paolo has already mentioned. And finally, I will conclude my presentation with some examples from Greece. So let's start by setting the educational goals. one could say that the ambition is to create a cohort of public sector accountants who have technical skills and a profound understanding of the role of accounting information for transparency, accountability, and decision-making. So the ideal candidate could be one that possesses professional judgment, knowledge, and ethics. In other words, accountants who know accounting, but they are also aware of sustainability and budgeting technicalities. So could we draft one ideal accounting profile for public servants? Is there just one ideal, or we may have multiple ones? In any case, we could set some educational goals. While maybe there is a consensus about the high-level qualifications of an accountant, very similar to what I have already discussed, the way to get there has many alternatives. And more specifically, different profiles call for different approaches. So let's see what are the differences that exist between existing public servants that undergo what we usually call lifelong learning, that is vocational training, and new people that get into the profession, and nowadays they are only in the academic environment, either following bachelor or master programs. Training of existing public servants. I have a few questions about the content of this vocational training that refers to focus, depth, purpose, practice, synergies, and topics. Let me start with the focus. Are we talking about specific modules that refer to experts and they get in much depth? For example, we teach them fixed assets, consolidation. So is this just one module, or we aggregate different modules in order to come up with comprehensive syllabi? Or our training covers different aspects and different dimensions following a holistic approach? The depth. Do we talk about expert knowledge that gets in much detail? Do we want to train people on an average knowledge, or just to give them some introductory knowledge to know about the issue, but not to be, let's say, savvy on it? Not all actors in the public sector that deal with accounting have the same role. So maybe we need different training material and perspective when we train preparers of information, users of information, or people that act as brokers between different tiers in the government, or between the government, the local government, public sector entities, and the media. Case studies, exercises, or technical issues. How are we going to perform the education? Could AI help us in this process? Because AI could be used in order to explain how some exercises are solved, provide more analytical steps in the process. Do we want to give them complex situations like case studies, focus on more extended exercises, or just implement technicalities like journal entries? At the end of my presentation, I have an example on that. I think that we have already touched upon the synergies between accounting and budgeting and the dual systems that exist. So when we teach accounting, do we do it in parallel with budgeting? Because more or less the transactions have an influence on both systems. Or we just concentrate on accrual accounting, or we pinpoint only the differences that exist between these systems. And finally, something that is very hot, Do we discuss accounting in parallel with sustainability? Because sustainability in the public sector is rather a large topic. It's not only sustainability reporting with standards. IPSASB just published an exposure draft. It's about to finalize a standard about climate-related disclosures. But we have also green budgeting, gender budgeting, SDGs. So when we talk accounting, do we introduce the notions of sustainability? Do we do it in isolation? Or we just focus on sustainability? And there is a very nice little article published in 2025 by Herling and Karadzimas in Public Money and Management that distinguishes these options, teaching accounting and sustainability in parallel or in different topics. So let's move on with the delivery of the training programs. Again, we have several alternatives. Will the program be delivered on a synchronous basis? That means that the tutor and the students are interacting at the same time, or it will be asynchronous. That means that they do not interact real time, or there would be a combination, part that is synchronous and another part that is asynchronous. Where is the training taking place? On site? Are we in a room or online through Zoom? Or we have a blended process of training through live streaming, let's say. Who are the tutors? We have public servants that come from the, let's say, general accounting office. We have academics that can also offer vocational training, and we have professionals. What is the pace of education? Is self-defined? For example, the student has a predefined period that has to conclude the training? Is it pre-described? In other words, there are milestones and the student should fulfill the requirements on, let's say, a weekly basis? Is there some kind of flexibility that can be defined? Material, what are we going to teach them? Material that is nationally developed for the specific characteristics of the accounting standards that exist in a country? Are we going to adapt material coming from open sources, let's say the IPSAS training material that is available? Or there would be a combination? Again, here, AI can help in order to develop some multiple choice questions. AI can help very much in translating material in national languages, etc. So are we going to have a certificate, a certification? Usually certifications are given after taking exams, but sometimes when students and public servants take exams online, we have to take into consideration AI and the fact that sometimes AI has implications on the accuracy of the exams. Sometimes certifications are given just based on attendance, or there are training programs that do not give any certification at all. And finally, the duration can be short-term, something very intense that concludes in 1 week. It could be medium-term, a couple of months, or it could be a yearly program. Paul also discussed about that. So a more comprehensive syllabi that runs throughout a year. So as we all understand, there are numerous combinations, different cost delivery methods for different audiences, and they come up with different results and satisfy different goals. So if we move from vocational training to academic education, I would like to show you the results from a study that took place in 8 European countries and was published very recently in 2025 in the Journal of Public Sector Management, the National Journal of Public Sector Management. So in this study, the 9 authors analyzed the syllabi of master programs in public administration and public management in public and private European higher education institutions. The countries that were covered, it was not just Italy, it was Austria, Croatia, Cyprus, Germany, Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Spain in alphabetical order. And the conclusion of the authors, and now we talk about master studies, is that the programs do not yet appear to provide a comprehensive competence package for future public sector managers, especially for those who will occupy upper-level finance-related functions in public sector organization. I think this conclusion is very much aligned with what Paolo discussed a few minutes ago. And because this event is about consolidation, sorry for the small letters, here on this slide there is an excerpt from this study where they show which topics are covered more and which topics are undercovered. I've put within the, this rectangle the cases that refer to consolidation. So you can see that in Austria, Croatia, and Cyprus, consolidation is not covered at all in the curriculums. We can see just a few cases in Greece, Portugal, and Spain, but is rarely encountered. And we see that consolidation is a topic that is more frequently found in programs in Germany and Italy. So if we would like to provide a quick answer whether consolidation is well taught in the university, the answer is most likely no. So let's move on to what we are doing in Greece. I have prepared 3 examples. The first one is a software called AIMER in the public sector. It is an educational software for the analysis of the basic financial statements. That means the statement of financial position, the statement of financial performance, and the local government budgets. And AIMER is an acronym that stands for Account Information Made Easily Read. So you can visit the website, but unfortunately all the material is in Greek. And this software provides a user-friendly way of understanding the information that is presented. So in this software, we use some graphical representation. We use plain language in order to explain what we mean by fixed assets, liabilities, the different ratios, financial ratios that are calculated. We give emphasis on comprehension, and the system is user-oriented. So this is an excerpt of the website, and we have also developed a very small article that was published in Public Money and Management with a colleague in 2022. Public Money and Management is a journal that welcomes a lot of academic publications that have to do with public sector accounting education, and we thank you very much for that, Andreas. I take the opportunity to thank you in public. Second example, let's see what the Training Institute for the Public Sector is doing. From the beginning of 2026, Greece will undergo a tremendous change in the accounting system. We are going to apply full accruals throughout the general government. So it will be one chart of accounts, the same account policies for all the general government. So the National Center for Public Administration and Local Government is undertaking 2 training programs. They are online, totally online, but they are synchronous. There are two programs. One is basic. That means what are the characteristics of the new accounting framework for the general and government financial statements. And another one is advanced, accounting reform and accounting policies. So for those that do not have accounting education, these are directed to the basic program. Those that already know accounting, maybe private sector accounting, they are directed to the advanced program. The programs, both of them are very intense. They are 5 days, 7 hours per day. At the end of the course, there are exams with multiple choice questions. The tutors are members of the General Accounting Office. The educational material is rather, let's say, typical. We have PowerPoint presentations and a booklet with some notes. And the class size, even though the training is taking place through Zoom, it is 25 to 30 attendees. Let's go to the final example from Greece. There is another program. It is an e-learning program that is offered from the Center of Education and Lifelong Learning of the Athens University of Economics and Business, which is totally asynchronous. It gives, two ECTS, 60 hours divided in 12 weeks. The exams are online. The tutors are academics and professionals. And in this program that is rather innovative, we have invested a lot on the educational material. So apart from the PPTs where we have information about accounting policies, the new chart of accounts, there are short videos, self-assessment exercises on a weekly basis in order for the trainees to understand whether they have comprehended the material covered, multiple choice questions, several of them, and journal entries, because we want to have the, let's say, students practice with the new accounting plan and the new accounting policies. So could we show the video right now, please? As part of the learning program entitled New Accounting Framework for the General Government, offered by the Center of Education and Lifelong Learning of the Athens University of Economics and Business, we have developed a set of self-assessment journal entries to help trainees practice. Let's assume that an entity buys equipment for 1,000 euros on a 3-month account, and the asset will have a useful life of 5 years. We register the journal entry by completing the cells for the account debited, and we proceed to the account credited. In each account, we add a dash for the cell that is not debited or credited. So let's start from the drill down menu. We have to select what is the proper account. Here we see maintenance expenses for equipment, equipment cash equivalents, and 3 types of liabilities. We select equipment, we debit with 1,000, we put the dash on the credit, and then we select the proper account for the liabilities. It is liabilities for asset acquisition, dash for debit, and 1,000 for credit. We move on with the second question. After 6 months, the entity buys a spare part for the equipment. It has a cost of 100 euros. The spare part will improve the asset's efficiency, but it will not affect its useful life. The spare part has a useful life of 2 years. So we understand that this spare part is a component of the equipment. We debit equipment, we put the amount of 100, credit, dash, and we move on with the liabilities account. Again, it is liabilities for asset acquisition, dash, and a credit of 100. The third event refers to expenses. After 4 months, the entity performs maintenance on the equipment. The invoice for maintenance is 70 euros on account. Out of the drill down menu, we select the maintenance expense for equipment. We debit with 70, credit dash, and we have to be careful to identify which is the correct account for the liabilities. It is liabilities for other expenses. So we credit it with 70 and we put the submission button to see whether our results, our answers are correct. We can see that all our answers are correct in this case. So The journal entries can accommodate complicated transactions with multiple accounts credited and debited, and they have been highly appreciated by the trainees, as this process makes practice in journal entries really easy and user-friendly. Okay. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. It was nice, very nice to see the examples of Greece. Now we're going to see on the PAO perspective how we are advancing with this. Please, George.
So firstly, thanks so much for your attention this morning. It feels quite intimidating coming towards the end of 3 such excellent days of presentations, and in particular after 2 really interesting talks from my academic colleagues. I'm going to be, as has been said, giving the perspective of a professional accounting organization on some of these challenges, but I want to emphasize that whilst this is sitting within the EDUCOP session, this is something which spans both the educational side and the technical side of the objectives of PULSAR. I'm going to be presenting on the concept that we've been looking at ACCA for a little while, which is the idea that professional accounting organizations around the world can play a really important role in pushing forward effective public financial management reform as centers of excellence for reform. And that partly relates to their training function, but it also goes beyond it to the role they can play as membership organizations with professional accountants within the public sector being part of it. So firstly, a very quick introduction for those of you who don't know about it to ACCA. The Association of Certified Chartered Accountants is the world's only truly global professional accounting organization. We're headquartered in the UK, but we have a presence in hundreds of countries around the world with over 240,000 members. We have more public sector accountants qualified through ACCA than through any other institution or organization globally. And we exist to support the development of the accounting profession globally and to act as a force for public good. So the question I want to pose today is, firstly, what role, if any, do you see there being for professional accounting organizations in public financial management reform in your own countries? Now, most PAOs are not a formal part of government, and many of them, in their own organizational visions, don't put public financial management at the center of their purpose. So it's perhaps unsurprising that frequently reform leaders give little consideration to the role that PAOs can play in promoting effective reform. But my objective today is to make the case that national PAOs can play a really critical role as centers of excellence for reform, standing outside of government, but leveraging their unique position as the bodies that train and certify accountants working at the coalface of public financial management within the public sector. Reform champions should want their national PAOs to be at the table when it comes to thinking through reforms and supporting their delivery. And national PAOs should want to be at that table representing the interests of their members and ensuring that they are serving as effective partners to government. Now, not all PAOs will likely consider themselves to be in a position today to fulfill that function. But our view at ACCA is that the potential gains of supporting PAOs to develop into such centers of excellence is sufficiently important that programs like this one, like PULSAR, should really consider how to bring PAOs forward and develop them to allow them to take on this kind of function. So I want to start off with a short case study in how reforms can go wrong. So back in 2014, in Hungary, a reform was brought forward to introduce accrual-based accounting at the municipal level. At the time, it was widely trumpeted. But when researchers went back in 2019 to speak to the public finance officials in the municipalities who had to implement it, they found really high levels of dissatisfaction with how the reform had worked. Respondents to the survey and interviews spoke about a chaotic transition process in which there wasn't enough guidance for accountants, that the training wasn't sufficient, that the time frame was too short, and that it put a significant operational burden on their staff during the transition. Even once fully implemented, many felt that the workload for staff as a result was too high to justify the benefits. They pointed to excess complexity. And they pointed out that the purported benefits were not being realized because the accounting information being generated was not being used by decision makers in practice. Now, my point here is not that that reform should not have been pursued, quite the opposite. The point I want to illustrate is something which I think we all know, which is that public finance reform is complicated and challenging, and that frequently the expectations we have at the start of the process are more challenging to realize than expected. And I think it also highlights three key reasons why these reforms often turn out to be so challenging, and those are highlighted on these slides. There is the potential for issues around the availability of appropriately skilled staff in sufficient numbers to implement new reforms. There was highlighted issues around buy-in, potentially at the political level, but also at the working level from the people who actually have to deliver the reforms. And there are potential issues around the extent to which reforms have considered the specific context and operational challenges that will be faced by practitioners who need to turn the reform vision into a reality. Now, I believe that PAOs are well placed to support government to address all of these challenges. And I'll set out in a minute exactly why that is. But first, I want to point out that there are fundamentals of the PAO role that need to be in place before they can hope to fulfill this vision of playing a really constructive role in public financial management reform. They need to have the right organizational strategy and the structures needed to implement that strategy. They need to have their own appropriately skilled staff, and they also need to be ensuring they're fulfilling their absolutely core mandate, which is to ensure a sufficient flow of skilled accountants into the profession. But what would it mean for a national PAO to be a center of excellence for public financial management reform? I'd argue there are three key areas: their ability to harness member insights to support reform, the ability to serve as effective advocates for reform, and their role in providing and delivering the inflow of skilled professionals to help deliver it. So firstly, harnessing member insights. A significant proportion of public sector finance professionals will be members of professional bodies, of PAOs. This gives PAOs a particular opportunity to address the problem that was highlighted earlier around a contextual understanding of the challenges faced by practitioners. Members have a deep level of insight often into the specific strengths and weaknesses of the PFM system in which they operate. And they have the ability to generate insights that can be useful to those designing reforms. They need to have PAOs need to develop the ability to gather those insights from members, to analyze and package them in a way that supports government's understanding the challenges that members face, and they need to have the relationships with government that allows them to be heard when they're communicating that. The second area I want to highlight is around reform advocacy, and this goes in two directions. There is advocacy to government to make the case for reform, but perhaps even more importantly, there is the role that PAOs can play in explaining and selling the benefits of reform to their members. Often, members with responsibility for delivering on significant public sector reforms may be skeptical initially about their value. PAOs can play an important role, given their trusted role with members, in helping to support effective change management and bring members along with the changes which are being suggested. Now, perhaps most obviously, they also have a role, PAOs, in skills development. At ACCA, we believe really strongly in the important role that PAOs can play in professionalizing the finance function. It's something we've done quite a lot of research on over the years. And we've been looking in recent times and are in the process of implementing changes to our qualification, which are designed to help ensure that those qualified with ACCA have the broad range of skills needed to operate effectively as accountants, both in the private sector and in the public sector. In addition, PAOs have an important role to play in ensuring that members stay up to date with the latest developments needed to fulfill an effective role as public sector accountants, whether that's awareness of relevant standards, whether that is the developments in technology which can affect their role, and providing those opportunities for continuous professional development for members who are working within the public sector is another important area where PAOs can contribute. And finally, training for non-members. There is a real opportunity, we feel, for PAOs to provide more foundational level training for non-accounting professionals within the public sector to ensure that those who need to have an awareness of broader accounting principles have those skills to the level that they require it. So how can organizations like ACCA potentially help? At ACCA, we have over 40 years of experience building the capacity of PAOs around the world. And we have an offer which spans support on advisory around things like strategic planning and organizational development, capacity building to address skills gaps, but also around qualification development. And I would in particular highlight some of the more unique elements of offering, like our joint exam schemes, which have the potential to allow PAOs to very rapidly develop their qualifications to a level that fits with global standards and best practice, and allowing them to refocus their attention on addressing some of the key issues like promoting the profession internally within their countries and supporting more effective reform. There's also an important role that we can play as a super connector, using our global networks to help give access to other organizations around the world and support cross-learning for PAOs. So to conclude, we feel that there is a really significant role that professional accounting organizations can play in supporting effective public financial management reform around the world. Now, we're aware that for many governments and PAOs, this concept, this idea of focusing more on reform facilitation may feel novel and potentially challenging. But I would ask you to consider what difference it could make to you in your own countries if, as you embark on your reforms, you were supported by a capable and engaged national PAO partner who was able to support in the areas that I've highlighted in relation to bringing members along with reforms, in relation to ensuring that you have the skilled staff that you need to deliver them. So I'm looking forward to hearing whether this is a concept that resonates with you around the room, and if so, what support you feel the PAOs in your own countries might need in order to make that a reality. So thank you very much to CFRR and the WorldBank team for inviting me, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, George. So now we're gonna give the floor to Natalia to moderate the questions and answers. So please feel free to start with the questions.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for these very interesting presentations. And let us move to the Q&A session. We still have about 30 minutes. So, but before, I don't see raised hands so far. So while you are thinking, oh, there is one. Okay, then I will ask my questions as well. Yes, please. Do we have a microphone?
Good morning. Thank you very much for very meaningful presentations. It's true that education and practice would be the foundation for implementing IPSA standards and for consolidation of financial reporting. These are very important issues that you've raised. And I see that the problems we have heard presented are very similar to what we experience in our countries. And I'd like to share some of our experience with training accountants for the public sector. 30 years ago, mainly we had state-owned enterprises, and so the training was focused on public sector for accounting. So our public sector accounting was much stronger than private sector. But now, with transfer to market economy, we see that the power of private sector accountants has risen and surpassed public sector. And same thing happened in education. Now, as we see, the training for private sector accountants is at very high level, while public sector accounting is lagging behind. Why it happens so? In the beginning, the students that studied accounting for the public sector, they were forced to have 3-year work in municipalities before they got their diplomas. So they, yes, you could say was forced, but it was mandatory experience. So they had guaranteed job for 3 years, and they received very strong mentorship and experience. So now there is no obligation to work before you get your diploma. So they're free to go, but they have very little practice. And when students go to private universities, they pay for their education, so they don't have to work now in the government institutions, and we lack public accountants. But like Paolo said, there is gap between theory and practice. Yes, we have progress in theory. We promote new curricula, but practice is not sufficient. private companies, they want experienced accountants, and the public institutions are not as attractive, and you need to stimulate people to go into public institutions. So what would be a solution? Some people say we need to have more experienced accountants, but you have overflow of public accountants into a private business. So you have practitioners who would move from public sector to private, but not from private sector to public. And then we don't have enough experienced practitioners that would train new accountants. So really, we don't have enough public sector accountants. And there is a lifelong learning opportunity, but people need to pay for that training, or they don't have time, or if they have very good positions, then their leaders are not allowing them to leave.
Thank you for your question. I think this correlates very much with what Paolo mentioned in his presentation. So I don't know if you want to reflect on this to add something more.
Yeah, sure. So thank you very much for your contribution, and thank you for sharing like very interesting experiences. And I'm also happy that we seems to be a set of common problems, which is already a good thing to find solutions. And exactly what you refer to is what I was meaning when I was like saying a million of timely. Even if we train, if we have a lot of public accountant and people that want to be public accountant, we still not have people ready to operate, which in the light of those numbers that I show might create an important lack. And I think the idea of replicate some on-job training before you graduate is what another term I was calling restructuring the educational pipeline, in as much you have people that when they graduate are ready to operate, and therefore you can enact, you can kind of fill the gap of what that I was showing before. So thank you so much for your reflection. Also because I say like, yeah, there's a set of common problems, and it's also very good to share this experience for this reason. Again, how to address in a timely way the research practice gap is one of the main challenges of thinking about this kind of reform or solution for this situation. So thank you so much.
May I also add something on that? You observed that it's difficult from accountants to go from the private to the public sector. This is a matter of incentives. First incentive is financial based. So the salaries in the public sector are usually lower from those in the private, and the prospects may be less. So we need to give public sector accountants more a vision about their role. It's not only crunching with the numbers, but they are information brokers. They should inform politicians, the public, the media about the financial outcomes of the public administration. So I think their role should be expanded, and they could feel that they add value and contribute to their country or the local government. So it's not just one job. It is something more that matters. So incentives are very important. And I truly believe in vocational learning and lifelong learning. We cannot have public sector accountants being educated in their 20s when they're still young and being 50 years old and not having additional training. It's good for them because they renew their knowledge. Now there are very good IT tools that can be applied that make education like a game. There is the gamification of the educational process. So I think that the countries that would like to have a robust cohort of public sector accountants should invest heavily in lifelong learning and cover the cost of this vocational learning. It's not that much. It has a lot of benefits. Without capacity, I mean, the issue of capacity was mentioned several times, and it's one of the reasons why reforms fail. Without having educated public sector accountants, the accounting reforms that are planned will not succeed. So we have really need to invest on people. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to add to this topic, I have a question on this as well. Paolo, you mentioned in your presentation the PULSAR research that we made on 6 countries, comparing public sector accountancy education framework in 6 countries. And as a result of this report, we had pretty same conclusions that you also mentioned, like lack of interest to public sector accountancy education, high demand in countries for highly qualified accountants in public sector, and lack of consistency between the curricula in universities and PAOs, and no CPDs in 6 countries, basically. There were no requirements for CPD for accountants in public sector. And you mentioned 2 strategies, 2 proposed strategies, how that those issues may be addressed. So my question is whether you implemented or you know all the effects of parts or implementations of the strategy, and how did it work? And yeah, and I understand that what Sandra mentioned as regards to online training and e-learning courses, it may be considered as part of that strategy. Also question to Sandra, how it worked. Did you see increased interest among accountants to these programs, and maybe some statistics? Did you see more interest? Did it help, or is it helping?
Thank you. Thank you for your question. So I highlighted those 2 proposals. One that was very big, very strong, like, public sector accountant as a grand corp. I don't recall countries that do that, but it was just a provocative thought, just because, you know what I mean. Part of the problem with public accountant sector's attractiveness is status, and so that's why I was, making that proposal. On the other one, the one on the left seems to me much more viable, because you don't play with changing the relative relevance of professional families within the public sector. And as concerned that our university kind of proposed that model to some decision makers in our regional government, because I saw that strategy as much more viable. University can restructure the pipeline, so you have bachelor, master, and executive master with coordinated contents that produce ready to operate public accountants. You have on structure onboarding program and the end of career program. And this is much more manageable at the local, the intermediate level. So we actually proposed that. I want to add something, that part of that strategy on the left, the one that I showed the left, also illustrated as one of the elements changing basically the selection text that we use for recruiting public accountant. Because right now, well, that's a generic problem that we have with all the public vacancies. But some of the selection text tends to be very legalistic, very, very formal. So if I learn word by word all the bookkeeping rules and all the definition, I'm very likely, to pass the test, but it doesn't tell us that you are ready to operate chief public sector accountant. And so part of that proposal on the left also included radically redesign the way the selection tests are run. Okay, so yeah, no, the one on the right was more of a provocation, just to discuss of the problem of the status in order to make it attractive. And the one on the left is something that we actually proposed. We propose, we don't know how it's going to happen, but as George says, we might need an organization a global organization supporting and the advocacy for, for such a policy proposal.
So in the second part of your question about e-learning, I'm a great supporter of e-learning programs. And I think that IT can help these programs to be attractive, user-friendly, and enhance the educational process. So the e-learning program we have in the university, it runs for the last, let's say, 2 years, 3 times a year. It has attracted about 300 people because it has a fee. And it's very interesting to see who attends this program. It's not only public servants, because public servants, public accountants should pay that from their own pocket. But we see that there is high interest from auditors, because auditors will go and audit the financial statements of local governments and hospitals, etc. So they want to get acquired with the new system. And there's also accountants, private sector accountants, because sometimes they have clients from the public sector. So these e-learning programs are not tailor-made only for the public sector, but they can be very helpful also for the periphery, for all other actors that interact with the public sector. And this is really beneficial because the new system becomes known to all the, the ecosystem of the public sector with multiple benefits for all. Of course, our government could endorse an e-learning course or develop an e-learning course and provide, offer it to all public servants for free. The cost is not that much. It is the willingness to prepare something like that. And as I said in my presentation, this could be modular. For example, you could have different modules with different level of analysis for experts, just at the introductory level, long-term, short-term. So you can use e-learning in multiple ways in order to improve the capacity, the accounting capacity in the public sector. And it's easier and more cost-effective and overcomes geographical barriers. So thank you.
So much. Thank you. George, would you like to add something from PAO perspective?
Well, I was just going to add on that last point around e-learning. It's something that at ACCA we've been doing a lot over the last decade or so. And things like our certificate in IPSASB implementation, our certificate in public financial management have proved really popular with officials in public administration around the world who are going through really significant changes in how things are done as part of that process of continuous professional development, maybe in contexts where that isn't laid on as a default by their employers. So yeah, I think it's something that ministries should be really looking at, the ability to make use of these kinds of really potentially quite low cost ways of bringing up the capacity of their staff.
Thank you very much. Okay, Heike. And then Oleg and Giovanna, maybe you, do you have a question or you wanted to add something to what we're discussing? To add? Yeah, let us then start with Giovanna, please, if you do not mind. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, thank you. For my colleague from university, but also for professional organization, I would like to know about the cost of this training into the public sector management. I won't comment on this. I will leave you to comment. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
I already said that the cost for the e-learning program that we have in the university is 300 euros, and it is 2 ECTS, 60 hours, and we can go up to 20% discount if there is a group registration or something like that. So the cost, it's really affordable, at least in the Greek case. For the institute, the public sector institute, of course, is for free. Okay.
Yeah, I would say that's a very similar story from our side as well. I mean, it's in the region of a couple of £100 to complete one of our e-learning courses. So that they are really cost effective, and there's always, again, like discount models when institutions are buying on bulk. It can bring the cost down to a really quite low level.
Yeah. Thank you. Heike, microphone. Katja.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. So a few questions. First, it was mentioned in slides. It was example from Greece that you have a program, public administration, and it's mainly covered the public accountants program. So first one, I'd like to know, is it a bachelor program or master program? So second, don't you think to have a separate program, or mainly the demand for public accountants is covered by the public administration program? And at the end, do the participants of such program, public administration, needs to go on with a further qualification programs covered by, organized by state or professional organization, or they have enough qualification to work as a professional accountant in your countries? Thank you.
So the information that I shared on the slide refer to master programs. So in only a few undergraduate programs, we have one course in public sector accounting. But it's not only the issue of the demand. Maybe there is demand for public sector accounting, but do we have supply? I mean, do we have colleagues, at least in Greece, in the academic level that teach public sector accounting? Because this is not just budgeting, it is accounting. And I think there is also a scarcity of colleagues that really invest their time and energy in public sector accounting, because this is a niche. So I think that we should also invest in attracting more colleagues from the accounting discipline to public sector accounting. The ones that complete these master programs can be employed in the public sector, because in order to do that, we have national exams in Greece. But for those that want to get in the upper levels of the hierarchy, they have to undergo another one-year program in public administration from the National Institute. So it's not easy. And we have to bear in mind that accounting, at least in Greece, has become more, let's say, professional, more sophisticated, more accrual-based lately. So there is no much demand. There wasn't much demand so far. Now we see that we need more skilled people because of the reform. So I think that there is a situation that we have to balance: supply, demand, circumstances, accounting reforms. Okay, thank you.
Which, if I can add a point, what Sandra just said is what I try to connect to in my last slide. That, Sandra said it much nicely, but that was the point. Like, you know what I mean? Like young researchers in general right now are incented to do different things rather than knowing the nuts and bolts of public accounting, as it would be useful for someone that has to be a ready to operate public accountant. So yes, this is but you said it much better. Yeah, but that was the point.
Thank you very much. More questions? Oleg Alexandrovich. Oh, what? Okay.
Thank you for a very interesting and very open and sincere presentation. You described all the shortcomings. Of course, we knew the difficulties, but you announced them from the platform. I'd like to share some of our experience as well. When we started public financial sector reform, we started with question, we need personnel for the new system, because you cannot build new system without people who would run it. And so we looked at three possibilities of forming accounting. One is every organization creates its own accounting service, and that's a most widespread solution. But also, we proposed to create a centralized accounting for municipalities, so that accounting is done in a centralized way for all small organizations. This could solve personnel shortage problem at least by half. And some tasks could be outsourced. Of course, we established criteria for outsourcing services, and if NGOs or private entities could meet those requirements, they could also provide services as outsourcing. So this is how we solve the shortage problem, or at least we are trying to.
Thank you very much. That was an experience sharing from Armenia. And let us take one more question. Katya. Okay. I have time.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. From what I've heard, I'd like to hear also colleagues' opinion on the following. We have discussed consolidation before, and here I'd like to ask about perimeter of professional mobility. So we are training specialists for the public sector, and then people can move within public sector from finance to accounting to audit within public sector. Or we should train as educators, we should train professionals that would work in public or private sector, and they would choose their career as they wish. What do you think? Thank you.
Who would like to start? Would you like to start?
Yeah. So I would like to thank you for the two inputs. So I'd like to thank the colleague for explaining how they try to address the shortage. And again, it's important that the sources of public sector accounting education are multiple, not just academia, for a number of reasons that we have been discussing. So thank you for bringing to the table your experience. And then coming to the last question. So basically, this was very interesting. What are the constraints in which we are moving? Are we trained? Should we train people to be accountant in general, or are we training people to be public sector accountant? I think that, and I'm speaking of Italy, and this relates to one of the slides when I show you the different type of accounting system that we have. Yeah, it is true. Now we generalize the accrual accounting. A number of organizations only have accrual accounting. A number of organizations have both cash-based and accrual accounting. But the truth is that if you are not trained specifically in that type of public sector accounting system, you will not be able to run. So in the Italian cases, I would find very hard to find an accountant that does both, with the same background. Obviously, the income statement and the balance sheet, the financial statement are the financial statements, but the line items, the bookkeeping rules are so different, especially for those that have harmonized. So the first question would be, no, I don't think that we could train someone that can do both things, public and private, nicely. Mobility matters for some of the proposal that I put at the end of the slides. Those of the grand corps obviously require mobility, not in between public and private sector, but within public sector in as much. If you are a grand corp, then you are allocated somehow in the country. The other proposal does not require geographical mobility within the public sector. But coming to the question of the potential osmosis between public and private sector accountant, in the Italian cases, I would find it very hard. So I would train public sector accountant as public sector accountants. Yep. Yep.
So I think there's two levels to this. And I think clearly what we're all concerned about is making sure we have an adequate supply of appropriately skilled accountants coming into the public sector. And they are going to need really specific training on how to be public sector accountants. But I think there is a risk at a time when new graduates, people coming into the workforce, are really concerned around the career opportunities they're going to have, how the world of work is going to change, and this shift in mindset away from being really focused on a job for life, one thing you're going to do. I think you need to be giving fairly broad skills initially, and you need to be open to people qualifying as accountants and then receiving further specific training in the skills they need for the public sector. And I think that's, without that, if you just try and focus all of your training on we're training public sector accountants, you're not going to get that flow because it's still not attractive enough. And I think, some of the things that I think have been sort of implicit in this conversation is the importance of all of us doing a better job at selling the benefits of a career in public sector accounting. But I don't think it's there now. So I think we need to refocus on explaining the fact that public sector accounting is not just bookkeeping, it's not just number crunching. It is, as Sandra was saying, it's a management function. It's a route into meaningful roles in leadership. And I think once you have that, then it's going to get easier to have more people focused on it. But for now, I think there's work to do, and we need a variety of entry routes.
Natalia, just one
Yes.
last word. I want to be brief because we are getting out of time. I would like to comment a little bit on what was said from Armenia about using also people that are outsourced in order to perform accounting tasks in public sector entities. This is a solution. It is applied also in other countries. But sometimes when we have these services outsourced, we use a ceremonial process, a tick box attitude. So the accounting information does not really flow in the public sector organization. Somebody else is doing the accounting. We are okay with the legislation. So we have the accountability that they expect from us, but the information does not really inform decision-making in the public sector entity. So I am of the opinion that there is not one size fits all. We can have different combinations, different approaches based on the circumstances. So we can use outsourcing, we can also centralize some services, we can develop on a public sector entity level an accounting team. We can, and also I'm of the opinion that we need to develop accountants that they have a holistic overview of accounting. And now that we see that there is a harmonization on the process, the public sector and the private sector have only a few differences. It's easy to move from one sector to the other. And I think this is something nice for people because they see that their professional prospects are not restricted. You cannot be 18 years old and decide what you're going to do in your life. So I think we have to be open and exploit all the possibilities that are available and come up with solutions that fit the purpose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just final reflection, if I may. We already ran out of time, and we have many questions for sure, and I myself have a long list of questions, and we will continue this discussion for sure. Just one reflection that we remember the slide from the first day that Ross showed, where there were glasses and where the consolidation, there were clear picture, and where consolidation is not applied, the picture was blurred. So I just want to remind that accountants are the eyes. So just do not forget, about the professional accountancy educations, and let us continue discussion of this topic going forward. Thank you very much for this wonderful discussion. I'm sure it was interesting for everyone and fruitful.
Thank you very much. So, colleagues, we're gonna restart at 11. So please, thank you very much, panelists.
So what is the purpose of this? I will explain how it works. Garik, please take a seat. Garik will be moderating this session, and many people know how it works. It's called a fishbowl. It's called a fishbowl. So it's another reverse of a panel. On panel, you can give one question. If you are not happy, this is your problem. It's answered, we are moving forward. Here, it will be a discussion around in the circle, and everybody can come and join the circle and share the questions. So, for example, if you see that Paul has done his work, no more speaking, you can put on Paul, and Paul will leave and you will sit instead of Paul. Same with me and others. If you have answer, not only question, please join the circle. And the topic of all our these discussions, so this will help us just to be engaged together in the discussion and follow it here. Many of you know what is fishbowl, those who doesn't know, so now has the idea what is this about. So we will start now. We have fishes in the center. Paul, if you can sit here, so they have a camera, I believe. Yeah, no, that's one. No, it's here. There is a camera. So we can start then. Probably my question again, we started discussing, but I didn't get an answer to the question of, so do we consolidate ultimately municipalities, subnational governments or not? The answer was not that clear because it does not connect with IPSAS control versus legalistic approach that Andreas, you proposed. Can you please elaborate?
Thank you, Arman, for this question and the opportunity to answer it. I, in my experience, would recommend that you define the entities consolidated in a law. So if you want to consolidate the local government, say so in a law, but I think the same applies to the day one. If you want to consolidate state-owned enterprises, please also say so in a law. Why that? Well, firstly, because control is a principle. So if you apply control, you might end up consolidating some, but not the others, and that might not serve the purpose of the consolidated financial statements. And the second reason is very operational, because you need the information from those entities. You also need to harmonize their accounting policies, so you need to have quite a high level of collaboration, of cooperation. And of course, the law always helps you to convince, so to say, or to force the entities to deliver the information. Because if you don't have a law and say, well, according to me, you're controlled, they will say, well, according to us, we are not controlled, and they walk away. So if you have a law, this is very clear. If you're a local government and the law says we consolidate the local government, you're consolidated. The same applies for state-owned enterprises. If we say, well, state-owned enterprises are consolidated, then they are consolidated, like it or not.
Just to clarify then, you say that we need to adopt a law, so that is by default, you say that in all the countries, the consolidation of subnational government is important, even if we call it not consolidated financial statement by the whole of government accounts, we can give a different name, but this is important, and the only way to do this is law. But law adoption of the law is quite challenging, or changing the law. How we're going to address this point?
Well, of course, the law has to be issued by a legislature. But I mean, most of the countries have a public sector accounting or a public finance act or some sort of act. I'm not talking about a new law on consolidation. I'm just talking about adding a paragraph, an article in an existing law, which can be the Public Finance Act, which can be the Public Accounting Act, whatever you have, add one article or two articles stating which are the entities to be consolidated. Just one word of warning, I would not use whole of government. Whole of government is used in the UK, we appreciate that, and our friends in the UK even are split about that idea of calling it whole of government. I would suggest that you call it by economic sectors which are well known, which are well defined, like the public sector, or if you don't want to include the enterprises, then the general government sector, but use a terminology which is defined and not whole of government, which is an undefined name.
So that is, we do just consolidated financial statement, include subnational government, and include in the law if we can. Ross, do you agree with this approach? Any other thinking behind?
Well, I fully agree with it. I think when we talk to people about consolidation, one of the main challenges we hear is how to determine control. So the approach Andreas is advocating for would clarify the scope of consolidation and what's controlled, because the law would make it, the law or the regulation would make it clear where the boundary is. And I think that makes it easy to interpret the principle on what's controlled and what's not. So I would highly encourage taking that advice. And I think there may be a point I would make in addition to that is the IPSAs are the high-level principles to be applied for standards. In all cases, they need to be turned into accounting policies. That also is for consolidation. You need to have a policy on what you consolidate and what you don't, what's controlled and what's not controlled. So there's always a level of interpretation of those policies to make them work in the financial statements. So that shouldn't be neglected. They shouldn't be looking to the standard to tell you, do this, not that. It's you're applying the judgment to the facts and circumstances and developing a consistent accounting policy to ensure that you're consistently and comparably accounting for the information.
And then if you do this, then just to clarify, then it will not be fully compliant with IPSAS, but the law, you will comply with the law, and you can still claim that this is your consolidated financial statements are in line with IPSAS.
That's a tricky question. So it'd be hard to say comply or not comply with IPSAS. I think the essence of the law that Andreas would be talking about would be being clear on the entities that are controlled by the consolidated entity. But I see Andreas wants to come in, so maybe let him clarify.
Well, I think that's what makes the Colombian approach very interesting, because they have a consolidated financial statement based on IPSAS 35 on the control principle. So that's the nation and the state-owned enterprises at national level, but not the local government, and even less so the municipal enterprises. And then they have that in the law as well. So that's let's say Article 1.1. And then comes 1.2, which says, and in addition, you do consolidated financial statements of the public sector. So that includes also the municipalities, and that includes also the municipal enterprises, in addition to the national level and in addition to the national state-owned enterprises. So like this, of course, the strictly compliant IPSAS financial statements is 1.1, but then you have 1.2, which also serves the purpose of having the full public sector in a financial statement, which is useful for economic decision making.
And my question, probably just last one this cycle, just to clarify for me. So when then the law also would help to address those entities that you do not control, for example, constitutional court, parliament, supreme audit institution. So because they under IPSAS, it will be, you don't control, you shouldn't consolidate, and the law would help to bring them under the umbrella, not only just subnational government SOEs, but also other entities, right? This is the...
Yeah, usually the legislature and the judicial branch of government, you can argue it by control, because usually financially they depend on the government budget. So in that sense, financially they are controlled by the legislature, which is issuing the budget. But I think again, having a law makes it much clearer, because there you can list the entities and say, well, it includes the parliament, it includes judicial branch, it includes executive branch, it includes state-owned enterprise, etc. So you can be very clear what is included, or eventually, if you really want to exclude something, very clear what is excluded.
Thank you, dear panelists. And if there are questions, insights, so I invite, yeah, please. So this is sort of a liquid panel, so you will all have opportunity to join and share your questions and insights as well. So please.
Thank you. We are going back to control, right? We need to start with understanding what we control and what we don't control. The approach is correct. When we legally prescribe, then we identify what entities in public sector are controlled and should be consolidated and which should not. In Georgia, we have a list of SOEs that are part of Treasury oversight. And when we talk about consolidated financial reporting, we force these entities to provide financial statements. But here's my question. Consolidating these SOEs one by one, or shall we make first aggregated financial report of these SOEs, process these data, adapt them, harmonize them, and then this aggregated data should be included in consolidated report of the government? What is a better option? So that at the end, when we get some financial indicators, some financial results, we could analyze what is the impact here that comes from these SOEs and what impact comes from budgetary organizations. Because we might get good indicators even without SOEs. And then when SOEs come in, then they will spoil everything, you know. So we need to analyze how we came to this situation. This aggregation could help us understand which is the share of these SOEs and how it impacts the final results. The same approach, in my opinion, could be used to municipalities. At the level of legislation, they must provide financial reporting to a Ministry of Finance, and Treasury is responsible for this financial reporting, and they provide financial statements. But when we publish the overall government report, we also publish municipalities' statements separately as part of larger report. We don't consolidate them yet. We have technical problems to consolidate them so far, and we need to overcome those problems to consolidate them fully. But the other question is about some possible aggregation at the level of municipalities before this aggregation is consolidated, like I just described for SOEs, and then overall consolidation could be made. So here is a problem. How do we organize single accounting policy, single chart of accounts, single requirements and approaches, and all these SOEs need to be transferred to IPSAS, and this is very difficult. Should there be some templates? Should there be some transition tables or some other practical solutions? What examples could you give, especially as PULSAR has this practice of creating a template chart of accounts? Could you give such practical examples for us? Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to take this? Yes.
There's a lot to unpack there, but I'll try and unpack a couple of points, because there's a couple of ideas or piece of advice I might highlight that were touched on the last couple of days. So I think what you're talking about, I think it was translated as aggregation before the consolidation. I think what you're talking about happens often in the private sector, in the public sector, and would be a sub-consolidation. So whether it makes sense to have a sub-consolidation of SOEs, sub-consolidation of subnational governments that ultimately roll up into the ultimate consolidation. And I would say I could see the benefit of that, but the structure matters too. The actual relationship between the controlling entity and the controlled entities. In the private sector, in my previous life, I've seen this in big corporations where they have different business lines and, they do their consolidation based on the various business lines and, whether it's technology company, research, production, sales and marketing. And even in different countries across the world, they might have subs into other roll-up consolidations by business line, but they've structured the business that way so it can work that way. So I think if you want to do the idea of a sub-consolidation of all state-owned enterprises, you'd need to think about the structure and the relationship. Would be one practical thing, I would say, and whether that's feasible or not, it's probably more complicated, but Andreas is going to come in on this one, I can see.
Yeah, I think first to come in on this one and then later touch on your other questions. In my experience, it's probably easier to do it just in one step. Why? Because the entities will have to identify the mutual transactions. And I think that's the difference to the private sector, where probably the different lines of business, they don't have mutual transactions because they're different lines of business after all. Whereas in the government, of course, you have transactions, for instance, between municipalities and state-owned enterprises, between state-owned enterprises themselves, between municipalities themselves, between maybe the middle level of government, if you have provinces or something, and municipalities. So you have all sorts of transactions going on. And the easiest way to identify those transactions is basically give them a very simple code. So if let's say a municipality purchases something from a state-owned enterprise, that on the invoice you have a code which says, okay, this is an intercompany transaction between the municipality and the state-owned enterprise. And the same if two state-owned enterprises have transactions between each other, to have the same kind of code. And like this, if you have those codes, you can more easily identify the mutual transaction, the reciprocal transaction, and eliminate those as compared to that staggered sub-consolidation, because then you will find it difficult. But now it's sort of between two sub-consolidations where you have some eliminations, and some eliminations you already do at the sub-consolidation level. So it's getting more difficult in my experience if you do it with sub-consolidation. Technically, it's okay. It's not wrong. It's not against the standard. It's perfect. But I think from practicality, it's better to have it in one step and identify the mutual transactions between entities, because that's what they know.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions? Or
perhaps there was another question about indicators.
Yeah, please.
So the point I was going to touch on is less on the indicators and more on practical approaches that you could take. So Thomas on Monday, when he was speaking about consolidating SOEs, gave the very practical example of the three-column approach, where the one column you have the gap, then you have the adjustment to the final consolidated. So, and his example was IFRS, adjustments to IPSASB, final consolidated totals. So I have seen that in practice many times in both private and public sector, and I think that is a very usable format to practically move from IFRS SOEs or even local GAAP financial statements to the adjustments. And as Thomas said on Monday when he was speaking about that, because IPSASB has a strong link with IFRS, there shouldn't be major adjustments needed, and they should be relatively consistent.
Can I answer to the first question, the scope of the SOE? I want to share the what is going on in the Korea case. So definitely from the central government, from central government perspective, definitely the municipal level or subnational level would be the scope to consolidate. But as for the SOE, it varies every year. So that means that in this year, we are going to segregate, consolidate the further number of 130, the SOE. Then next year, it varies. It will be increased or decreased. So that means that the Minister of Economic Finance set a criteria each SOE would be included this year in the fiscal year. So I think one of the examples for the criteria is that if the revenue is more than 50%, it out of the consolidation scope. But if less than that the revenue of that SOE is less, less than 50%, then it will be included. So something like that. So that means that I guess from this our experience, you need to have some criteria that hit what criteria you should adapt to include the SOE in this fiscal year or not, something like that.
Thank you. Let's hear Hovhannes from Armenian perspective insights.
Thank you very much. I'd like to give a comment here. Our law on accounting, we have two laws, one for private sector enterprises, one for public sector enterprises. And the government as a whole unit must present consolidated financial report to include all the structures under state control, not government control, but state control, because it's not just about the government. There is parliament, there are independent structures that are parallel to government, but are part of the state. And so it should be one whole unit. So the IPSAS gives consolidation for controlled entities, but we can also use IPSAS principles to consolidate overall. What principles? For example, if there are transactions between various government entities, then they should be excluded as internal. If the government gives resources, for example, to the parliament or to a chamber of audit, this is a parallel structure as well. They receive funds, and so these are mutual transactions. And this is, like you earlier said, is prescribed in the law on public accounting. Here's my suggestion or idea. When we began reforming accounting in public sector, it was 2010, 2012. We translated all the standards into Armenian. We made chart of accounts. By 70-80%, our chart of accounts is synchronized with business chart of accounts. So accountant from one sector can move to the other with less difficulty. But we felt that this is too difficult because to use these standards, you need to have as much knowledge as in the business sector. But then if you have the knowledge of business sector, everyone will go there because you receive more salary. So we simplified IPSAS to go to the level of SMEs standard. Because we created so high, fantastic institutes so that our accountants in public sector even didn't hear those names, all these derivatives and all those concepts that we don't have in public sector. There are only few financial instruments, some assets, some liabilities. We simplified here. And here is my suggestion to our respected IPSAS board. Maybe based on IFRS for SMEs, we can make IPSAS for public sector to make less requirements, less assets, less liabilities. I just recently studied standard revenue in public sector. That's IFRS 15 plus budget revenues. So actually, you need to know even more than IFRS for business, much more complicated. Measurement here as well for business sector. This is just fair value. But in public sector, you need also to have operational value. This is so much knowledge that public accountants should have. So this is a first suggestion. If possible, can we start discussion to simplify the system?
The second question we encountered in our reform process, when at the individual level started to develop financial statements, we had revenues, assets, and liabilities that are not accounted anywhere. I cannot account public revenues, state revenues, as the revenue of the Ministry of Finance. Budgetary expenditures are not Ministry of Finance expenditures. The infrastructure, assets, roads, bridges, concession assets, so the whole systems, airports, railways, water systems, all this is in concession. How to account this? And so we were thinking and we made the decision. We established virtual accounting units. And everything was accounted there, but it was not recorded at the individual level anywhere in any units. For example, the finance ministry compiles financial statements, and the finance ministry is the managing entity. They just manage public funds. But revenues and expenditures or public debt, this is not the debt of the finance ministry. Finance ministry doesn't have to account this debt, and they don't have to recognize expenditures on the interest payments. Otherwise, the Ministry of Finance will be always in the negative. Or we have for water resources, we have agency for water resources. If they account for concession assets on their balance sheet, then they depreciate them, they will be always in the negative. Why do you need that financial statement that doesn't accurately reflect the position of this agency? Then we decided to invent the virtual accounting units. For example, the finance ministry, they account for public debt or public investments. They account interest in other entities. All these units are established across the public sector, and then they are consolidated all together. And we get financial statements at the individual level, and then when you consolidate, it is easy to consolidate those financial statements. So this is the feasible approach. We can have a discussion about this at future panels. So I have these two questions.
Thank you, Johannes, very much for interesting insights. So any reflection from your side, Ross?
Yeah, I'm happy to take the first question. So firstly, the board has looked at doing an SMEs type standard or less complex entity standard just in the last couple of years, and ultimately decided it wouldn't take that approach. By looking at our conceptual framework, there was no way to determine a public sector entity that was, an SME or a less complex entity, because it's always spending public resources. So there was no way in our conceptual framework to draw that line between complex and less complex. And ultimately, I appreciate in Armenia's case, the transactions might be simple and governments aren't entering into complex transactions. But I can tell you from dealings with other jurisdictions around the world, some governments undertake very complex transactions. So for us to, international board, to draw a line and say, here's where we think complexity is in the public sector and where it's not. And if you're less complex, you can ignore these standards. That would be providing a solution that wouldn't be appropriate for some situations, and it would probably be the board overstepping. So they ultimately decided they would not develop an IFRS light, or sorry, an IPSASB light, or and we've got document on our website that explains the board's thinking of the steps it went through before it decided to not take that project forward. And one of the couple points of emphasis is, you can consider materiality, as it seems you have in Armenia, where you're not undertaking certain complex transactions. You don't need certain standards. If you don't have those transactions, you don't have to apply financial instrument standards. If you do, you should, because you need to show the economic picture of the transactions you've undertaken. The only complex transactions need to be shown if you undertake those transactions. If you don't need to. That's already built into every IPSAS standard. And maybe one last point. You talked about fair value versus current operational value as current value measures. And I just wanted to state that that's been put in there to help the public sector specifically with a measurement issue. But that's an option. In almost all standards, if you take the current value option, you also can take historical cost as an option if you want to take a more straightforward measurement approach. It's quite limited, except maybe financial instruments as a special area where you do need to do fair value accounting. Andreas?
I would like to add just 2 points, and I would like to congratulate Hovhannes for his mentioning of government versus state. I really caution the use of the English word government, because then our very nice but very challenged translators will translate that into government, which is the executive branch of government in most languages, and does not include the legislative branch or the judicial branch. In most languages around the world, this is the case. In English, this is the exception. So this is one of the challenges we have with the IPSASs, that they talk about government, but they do not mean the executive branch, they mean the state. That's the English language. That's not the fault of IPSASB. That's the English language, which is different from most other languages on this planet. And so I congratulate you for making this observation. So many thanks. In terms of simplified standards, I mean, I suggest that perhaps sometimes you all, I mean, I think all countries around the table or in the fishbowl here have national standards. So this is, of course, giving you the opportunity to structure the standards the way that people understand them. One example, most entities have accounts receivable and accounts payable. In IPSAS, you need to go and search them in a very big standard, IPSAS 41, and then it's around paragraph 60. So only in paragraph 60, you reach the point where you find out about accounts payable and receivable, and you have to read about 500 pages to find that spot. Now, because most entities have that, I really recommend that you have a national standard in compliance with IPSAS, of course, but a national standard which says very clearly and very easily what to do with accounts receivable and accounts payable, because everyone has it in compliance with IPSAS 41, paragraph 60, I think it is.
Thank you. And Ludmila wants to reflect on Ukraine experience or has additional questions in this topic, please.
Thank you. Just a short deviation from Ukraine experience. Everyone who comes to the WorldBank events, all my colleagues, we develop policies, accounting policies in our country, and not more than that. We don't develop the policy of the state in the understanding, as Andreas mentioned, and how in the states, the accounting policy and the state policy, how can we unite these two policies to make sure that consolidated financial reporting is demanded. So yes, we can come to the event, we can come back and we can adopt the accounting law. As decision makers do not read those laws, and even managers in business and public sector do not read those laws. It is the problem for the accountants. And how the information that we develop, including information of consolidation, how is it necessary for the policymakers? I'd like to discuss this, and I'd like to discuss the experience of Ukraine, how to make sure that this information is on demand by the policymakers. This was developed about 10 or 15 years ago. We adopted two laws. The law on the state property management. This is for the state sector. This is not about accounting. And also the local government law. It regulates local authorities, and it gives the right to the heads of central public agencies, that is ministries, to establish state-owned enterprises, and to the heads of local authorities to establish communal enterprises. But these two laws, they oblige the heads, the managers who establish the enterprises to be responsible for financial performance of those enterprises. What is financial reporting giving us? So the financial reporting is the information on the property and financials of the sector for which you are responsible. And we had the situation when the laws that were adopted and which regulate the activity of the SOEs and communal enterprises, these are political laws, and these are policy laws, and they were related to the accounting law. The accounting is the instrument which discloses the information necessary for someone. And we had consolidation and financial reporting by the government and by local authorities. It is consolidated at the level of the government by the treasury. It is done separately. Budget users and treasury as a whole. And so the government has the information, what is going on in the government sector, in the local authority sector, and what is consolidated the whole of government sector. This includes judiciary branch and so on. But it is based on our experience, how to create the synergy of policy and the accounting as regards support for us in Ukraine and for everyone else when we develop new amendments to the legislation. For example, now we developed the amendments to the law on accounting, which are related to the sustainability reporting. Naturally, we receive feedback, and it is not always positive. Why do we have to compile this report, and we communicate about the standards, and all the world is working on this, and we have to do it? They understand, we argue this, it is very difficult, including for the members of parliament. And for us, what is important is to have the analysis, to have the support, and if possible, from the WorldBank, some summary, some position of the WorldBank that the policies that we include into draft laws, they comply with the global practice. The role of the WorldBank is very important in this for us. I'm not sure about my colleagues, but it is very important for us for sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any reflection, maybe Armand? Yeah.
Yes. It's a very good point. Thank you very much for, yes, and this is what we are, that's why whatever we discuss, we need to tailor for country by country specific experiences and discussions, and that is where we work under each country. We're trying just to here provide a global or at least regional approach, what are the good practices and how to move forward, but every time we just need to tailor and to look into specific country cases, where you are, what you have done, which reform path you have gone through, what is the legal, regulatory, and institutional setup, what is the capacity within. And my next question actually is about capacity. We're discussing, probably we need Paolo and Sandra here, if you can join please, just on the educational side. Yes, yes, and my question is yeah, Paolo would like to just join. My question is that this morning we're talking about there is mismatch. We are missing skills in the public sector accounting. Paolo and Sandra, we're missing skills in the public sector accounting. At the same time, there is universities, they do not have, they do not provide that supply of cadre, and you said only 16% they have courses. And in Greece now there is a boost of reform of accrual, so you do it as e-learning and others. But at the same time, no demand for students. They are not applying for public sector accounting. And you count on ministries of finance, that ministries of finance should put a policy just to have a grant, so they have paid differently. But this is even not a Ministry of Finance prerogative. This goes into the public administration reform, that we need to separate accountants from all the rest and try to position them differently. And this in triangle, how we connect, because everybody is seeing challenge. Public sector, they do not have skills and people. You do not have programs you are trying to fix, but there is no demand. And how to make this balance working and what the role of the universities can be.
Yeah, just to complement to the challenges that Arman added in your presentation, I saw that in next 7 years, 1 out of the 3 public sector employees will be retired soon. So this is imposing additional challenge.
Yep. Okay, so thank you. Yeah, this one. So thank you so much for the question. That's a very challenging question. I don't have a direct answer. It's like I know that we've been discussing, for example, in Italy, that this problem of generational change would become very intense. But you know, I think that we're specialists at that, but I think it happens almost everywhere. You keep on discussing that an emergency will happen till the emergency happens, and it's not an emergency anymore because it's just a problem that you have. And then you're forced to find a solution. You know what I mean? That's how policy making happens sometimes. So I think that yes, the strength of the emergency will be a landslide, and somehow you'll have to do something. And that is unfortunately the way in which we will overcome the diverging objectives that right now we are experiencing. As concerned university, in our university, at Udine University, we try to be a little bit entrepreneurial. So one of the solutions, let's say the regional pact for supplying public sector accountant, was something that we package and that, as I told you before, we try to present to local decision maker, and actually that it was being well received because, you know, it's the problem is a problem that is like well understood. As concerned, on the other hand, the attractiveness of the profession of public accountants, especially for younger people, there is a very, very big problem for 2 reasons. First of all, there is, as I said, also, I believe there is a generational problem. Those stuff that were attractive for my generation are not for younger people. They look for a better life-work balance and more diversified contents of jobs. And so I think that even increasing the salaries, that is not something that you can easily do just for one type of profession. It would not be enough. Okay, even not be enough. So it was very interesting what Sandra and George were saying, that part of the strategy could be framing in a different way the status and the contents of the profession, so to make it attractive, beside obviously working on the retribution component. As concerned universities, Sandra said it before. It might sound weird, but I'm not sure that right now, for example, young researchers are so motivated to become expert in the nuts and bolts of public sector accounting, not in the critical studies of accounting. With that, I think that this will probably be fixed by the opportunities that the fact that the problem is being solved, and so there is money that is going to be allocated to solve the problem, hopefully will create an incentive. But on this other point, I'm sometimes, I admit, a little bit more pessimistic, and I think that also there is a relevant role that alternative source of public sector accounting must play, such as a technical school, such as a national school of administration. So on this side, yeah, sometimes I tend to be a little bit more pessimistic, but as someone said before, I don't think the university can be the only source of public sector accounting education right now. Okay, so sorry, my answers were patchy, but the problems were big and they were a lot.
Maybe we have another optimistic view.
Yeah, I'm always more optimistic. So I would start this discussion about what is the profile of public sector accountants, because it is not one size fits all. I believe in the holistic view. I would prefer a public sector accountant to have knowledge from multiple disciplines. Now he must be aware, or she should be aware, of sustainability considerations, budgeting and accounting. And I think that In this way, the accountant could treat the transactions in a way that makes sense. So we don't need technical people that are going to go through just to the journal entries, because AI is ante portas. In a few years, all these technical issues will be solved by the technology. We need the accountant to be a knowledge broker, information broker, the intermediate between what is going on in the public sector entity and management and the politicians, to use this information for decision making. So I think that in order to have a holistic view, the public sector accountants should be educated in different topics, in different level of expertise, just an introductory level sometimes, just to know what is green budgeting or gender budgeting, things like that. And on the topic that they have their everyday work, they could do something deeper, in more detail, more sophisticated, etc. So only then the accounting work will be also more interesting and something that you would like to do for your life, also in the higher tiers of the administration. The other issue is we need to join forces. That means we need the university, we need the professional institutions, the public sector to join forces in order to come up with something that adds value, is cost efficient, it is flexible, it is adaptable. I mean, the world is changing. AI has changed a lot of things. We have to monitor the new landscape with a clear mind, find solutions that fit the new reality. I'm more pessimistic.
No,
Optimistic.
I think that just to add something that what Sandra said, it is very important. And well, normally I'm the most optimistic of my colleagues. So, you know what I mean? That's why after the reunion, I was like, okay, like, you know, but after what Sandra said, and I do believe that fixing the solution that we were discussing before in terms of shortage of public sector accountants, etc., is a public sector as a whole problem. Meaning it works if there is a coordinated effort by the different actors. Coordinated efforts are never easy because everybody has his own agenda and his own incentives. But yes, it is totally true. Without a coordinated effort, I don't think that each single player can provide the solution. That's true. Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to briefly just connect two things which I think Paolo and Sandra were talking about. So one is this demographic challenge of the aging workforce for the public sector accountants, and the other is this idea of the potential impact of technological change, because I think that could actually create a kind of a double demographic challenge as the senior public sector accountants are retiring, but potentially with increasing levels of automation at the for certain tasks within the profession, the need for recruitment of people at the graduate level might go down at some point in the next few years. We're already seeing it within the private sector, some of the big audit and accounting firms cutting back on their graduate recruitment programs. And that's something that I think we need to think about from the perspective of how we develop the next generation of finance leaders within a slightly longer time frame. And I think that reinforces the point you're making, Sandra, about the need to work together to conceptualize like what the profession needs to be in the longer term, what skills we need to be giving to people coming through the system, so that they are at the qualification stage, but then as they're doing their early working life, developing those skill sets which are going to be essential for them to then be able to fulfill that sort of senior level role in 10, 15 years time.
Thank you, colleagues. Maybe you have any other solution to competitiveness, increasing the competitiveness of profession, particularly in your countries, particularly in the public sector. So feel free to join our panel or ask additional questions.
Okay, while everyone is thinking, just to follow up on this discussion, may I ask for specific examples on your universities Do you work with professional accountants organizations in your countries? How do you coordinate with the Ministry of Finance or other regulators? Do they have any role in defining the, or not defining, or contributing to the education program on public sector accountancy in your universities? Because I assume from what Paolo has shown on his slide, 16% maybe is not enough. Yes, so someone must be contributing to this program to really have the highly qualified public sector accountant in the graduate, right? So please share your experience in this regard. How do you cooperate currently? Like we know where we should go to, but what's going on right now?
And linked to that one, my question also to Sandra, you talked about e-learning course and you're using chart of accounts, hopefully of the Ministry of Finance. Can you elaborate what is coordination, what's happening between Ministry of Finance on the chart of account policies, how you integrate?
Thank you.
Yeah, so I would like to provide some like practical stuff, legal stuff that we try to do. So in one of my proposals, I would say universities should at least restructure their educational pipeline. So what we did, for example, we have a bachelor in public administration that has a specific public sector accounting set of courses, a master, and there is an executive master in public administration. And let's say the public sector accounting contents of these three streams, bachelor, master, and executive master, are coordinated. So to build what you guys were saying, a generic introduction, because you cannot just, at 18 years old, you cannot just go directly into, let's discuss how IPSAS helps consolidation or not, and whatever, like you probably might impress them away. So we restructure the educational pipeline with the objective of having ready to operate public sector accountants. So we did that. The other part that we were trying to do, as I told you before, was speaking to the regional government and say, hey, now please do your side of the job, which is a non-sporadic recruitment plan so that, demands and supply meets, and let's discuss what could be potential for selection test that makes sense to recruit someone that is ready. And let's think of what I say, like the end of career path. So we try to do our side of the job in one of those proposals. Another thing that we did, we launched like a training program solely for public sector accountant in cooperation with the regional government. That kind of work. These were mid-career people. So this was the second part of the thing. And let's say that the faculty was 50-50 academics and other public sector accountant. And in order to do what Sandra and George were saying, which is trying to understand how the profession is changing, we promoted a study asking public sector accountant very directly, how is digitalization, not so much digital transformation, but at least digitalization, changing your profession? Tell me stuff that you do differently than you used to do before, okay? So to build that educational pipeline on a profile that fit this description. Obviously, several stuff came out. Basically, people were telling me, hey, now there's certain aspects of our work are digitalized. I do this, but I don't do that. And we try to build that educational pipeline consistently to this. So these are little stuff that we try to do.
Thank you. Since we have only 15 seconds, so maybe 10 seconds each. Yes, please. Sorry.
Then I will just answer Arman's question. In order to build the chart of accounts for Greece, there was a collaboration between the university and also the General Accounting Office. And this was very productive, and it ended up with a very good result. However, if we want to solve the problems of education, first of all, we have to take stock of where we stand. Accounting is technical. In the programs of public administration and public management, they don't want to teach accounting because you don't have the professors to do that, and the material is very technical, it's out of their league. So we have to identify where we stand, where we want to go, and what is the ideal profile of our public sector accountant. We have a lot of things to do, but if we put everything in place and draft a plan to achieve these endeavors, I think this at the end would have a happy end, okay? But we have to work hard on it.
With PAOs,
Yes.
what do you like to, from your perspective, do you work with universities?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the points I would highlight there is, you know, from our side, one of the things we always look at is exemptions for people who have gone through university programs and how we make sure that those who have developed the skills in university programs already can be fast-tracked through the ACCA qualification. We collaborate very closely with universities around the updates and developments to our qualification to make sure we're learning from best practice coming out of academia as well. So yeah, it's a important stakeholder for us in our development of our qualification.
Thank you very much. This round of panel, we started with a pessimistic note, but I'm very thankful that we completed with an optimistic note. So, yeah, so now
yes. Organizational matter, because we need to check out by 1 o'clock. So there was a proposal to give you 15 minutes time so you can check out and come back. But do you have a question? Yeah, please join. Please join this.
I have two questions. Firstly, it's very good. This program very good with the practice and also the work. Yeah, so I think it's really good because in our country we don't have that. And my first question is, do you have some practical program for staff who now working in the government or in government organization, and after they come and learn, what you provide them as a motivation, for example, as a bonus, any money or any certificate and so on? This first question. And the second question, what about the age of, year, the students? Do you have any limitation in this? 60 year, 40 year? That's because in our country, we have some problem about this. That's why I'm asking. Thank you.
Okay, so as concerned age limit, in Italy, there's no formal age limit on any type of training, okay? So we had a case that made it to all the newspaper to a 90-year-old person that applied for Erasmus exchange. And, and this person had very good grades. And so, you know, it was an Erasmus exchange program. No, like, we don't have any formal limitation on age, not bachelor, not master, not executive masters, okay? So doesn't matter. Obviously, the average age is, you know, bachelor is the typical 18, 21, 3 years. Master is 21, 24. An executive master normally attract people that are a little bit older, and so the bracket is 30, 50. But there's no limitation of any kind as considering age. Now, as concerned, it's like, what do they pay and what is the reward? You know, this was the other question. Well, in bachelor and masters in public universities require that obviously you pay a little fee. That is normally little because public university are mostly financed through government budget. Executive master, even provided by public university, are a little bit more costly because they're considered products that are on the market. And so you gotta apply and pay your fee. And so obviously they cost significantly more. Not like a top program in an international university would cost, but a little bit more. Now, the other question, why should people do this? This was the other question. Yeah. Yeah, existing, yeah. Yeah. We did, yeah, so vocational. Yeah. We do, in terms of executive training, we have one long program that is called public management, generic, and a bunch of shorter training program targeting, for example, explicitly public sector accountant that are not degree courses, okay? They are vocational, and they normally are pretty participated. They do not grant an immediate access to any career step by themselves. This is left more to the fact that they provide a qualification that is normally considered as a plus in the ranking whenever you apply. But there is not any automatic recognition. But normally they give you a couple of points plus in the final evaluation when you applied for a vacancy. You're welcome.
So very briefly, also in Greece, there are no limits, age limits if you want to undergo an education. So everybody is welcome, provided that they're willing to take the courses. And we have a public sector entity that is an institution in the public sector that provides educational programs for free only to public sector servants. And in this realm, we have 2 courses that are basic knowledge of accrual accounting and the new accounting reform and advanced. And they are provided, they're very short, 1 week long, very intensive, because it is 7 hours per day for 5 hours per day. So 35 hours within a week. And at the end, there is a short of exams. It's online with some multiple choice question. And it ends up with a certificate of attendance. So it's better that you have it compared to not having it. And a lot of people that want to get acquired with the new accounting reform and the chart of accounts and the accounting policies attend it. So there is great demand about it. However, to tell you the truth, and I want to be frank with you, I don't know whether you can achieve the educational results that you want if you have such an intensive program that concludes in 1 week and it is 100% online, even though it is synchronous. That means there is a tutor and the people have their, let's say, screens open and you can see them online. However, it doesn't have the interaction that you expect to have in this type of courses. Nevertheless, it is possible for public servants all around Greece to attend this program. So we don't have geographical barriers. More things have to be done, but I think this is a good start and has been really, let's say, popular among public servants that work in the fields of accounting.
Sorry, just to clarify, those who need to check out today, friends, they need to check out by 1. So we gave 15 minutes now, so you can check out and come back. And we just continue. Who doesn't need to check out or already checked out like me this morning, we can continue. So who needs to check out, this is the time to check out. So you have actually now 10 minutes, just if you need to check out. Thanks.
That's one last question again, and I should check out also, so I should be fast. Do you have an exemption, who work more than 30 years as a accountant or chief accountant? Any exemption for them? I mean, if they have so many years practice. I mean, yeah.
No, we don't have an institution like that. No.
Not institution.
No. I know what you mean, like a rule, you mean like
exemption.
Yeah. For
take the training.
Yes.
For training.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Are there exemptions to certain disciplines or, do you provide some exemptions for the practitioners or?
You mean exemption for
I think this is about vocational
okay.
training, perhaps not.
Okay. Well, I think this is valid not just for public accountant, for anybody in Italy. Yes, you can apply, and part of the credit of a degree course can be recognized based on your professional activity. Okay, but this regulation is not limited to public accounting. It is generic for any type of job. You apply and you can get a recognition and exemption of 12 credits maximum. It was much more before, and it was left to the board of the different courses. Then people were exaggerating, and so national government say no more than 12 credits can be attributed for previous professional experience and activity. So yes, but it's not just for public sector accountants, it's for everybody.
But just a comment on that. Vocational learning is something good. I mean, everybody would like to undertake this course. Why should we exempt somebody that has much experience? So if there is a training course for the new accounting reform, maybe even the most, let's say, experienced in the public sector do not know how it works. So it will be beneficial for them to attend it. It's not that there is a punishment that you undergo training. No exemptions should be applied. Whomever is willing to undertake it, please be our guest and participate in these seminars, vocational training programs. So we have to bear this in mind. Training is something positive. I mean, everybody could get a benefit out of it, even the most experienced ones. We academics, we go to conferences and we listen to other colleagues. There is always something new you can learn from the experiences of the others. So no exemptions. Thank you.
We have a question. Yeah, please. Seems we have one more question. Yes.
I was wondering, do you have some kind of workshops or education training, anything which is dedicated to executives, to managers in public sector in reading and these accounting reports? Because it is not sufficient for us to make the reports. It is also important for them to understand these reports and to read accounting informations in them.
The answer, at least in Greece, is no, we don't have something like that yet. But now that all the government is going to move to accruals, I think it will be necessary not just to produce the reports, but also to show the information content that we can derive out of them. But this is something that let's say, the government, the General Accounting Office, somebody like that should organize, also with the help of professional institutions, universities, etc. But the initiative should start, I think, from the General Accounting Office, the Ministry of Finance, something like that.
And just to say that it's something that we are increasingly looking at are these finance courses for non-finance professionals who maybe are in these senior management roles and need to be able to interpret them. We've already got a certificate which is focused on the private sector. I think we're in the process of developing one which is focused on public sector executives so they can make use of these reports more effectively.
This new format of panel seems to be very popular. So we had time, please go ahead.
Yes, on the consolidation practices, that is also at educational level, but also practice level. My talk was about the parliament involvement, no? Because this is much important. Politicians should understand the practice we need to advance and the numbers. So, of course, raising this interest is not easy because in many cases, politicians are not, usual to such kind of education. So we may want to invest also educational level for politicians. And this is one thing. Another thing is that maybe we need to invest also on on tools to prepare consolidation. That is chart of account for sure. And this is, something that we need to develop at the ministry level or the authority which is in charge, but also with the educational level and the users. Statistics are the same, for example, because of course the same chart of account can be used also by statisticians to make the general government sector statistics. And this is another thing. And then last but not least, my view is inventory and register of all the asset and liability. Without that, you cannot proceed in the way to consolidation. So I think this is cooperation work among the ministry, among educational, university, and the users.
Just on the first point around education of politicians and parliamentarians, I think it cuts both ways. I think it's definitely really important that we're providing the right training for parliamentarians. But I also think in our training for public sector accountants, we need to make sure that we're teaching them how to communicate effectively to a lay audience, to an audience that aren't technical accountants, because I think very often you can create real expertise, but the level of detail, the level of technicality can mean that the message that decision makers need get lost. And that's something that we're, again, with our revised qualification, we've been really looking at, is how to make sure that accountants can communicate effectively to decision makers.
Yeah. So coming to the first question, did you ever try to organize like some form of training targeting politicians to explain them how accounting works? Now I go back to my pessimistic side. And the answer is no, we never tried, because I don't think that, also to be very direct, that would not be the market or the target for that. On the other hand, I have to say that we had politicians voluntarily enrolling in our executive program. For example, in our executive master, we had a couple of mayors. And the reason is that in our region, there are some very, very small municipalities. And so the mayor, like it or not, is directly involved in financial management just because the organization is so small. And so they wanted to understand more about some technicalities. And so they voluntarily came, and this was very interesting. Sometime we have been asked by parliamentarian groups at the regional level, mostly, to say, can you please explain our Congress members at the regional level, more or less a couple of numbers, how to crunch them and what do they mean, so that they can be better parliament members? And yeah, we did something like that. But organizing an entire long course, that would be, that would make me go back to the pessimistic side. Yeah.
Just a few words. First of all, apart from the financial statements that are developed in order to address the general audience and stakeholders in general, there are also some reports that we call them popular reports that are especially developed for citizens. They are written in a more simplified way. They have infographics. They have information that addresses an audience that is not accounting savvy. So if we want to communicate financial information, we should also develop reports that address the audience. As far as educating politicians on accounting, we need to follow a totally different procedure. The politicians do not need to know how the numbers are generated. They wouldn't care less. They are interested about the information content. And we have to make them understand that this information is valuable for them. It should be used for decision making in parallel with other types of information that is important for policy making. But this information has its own validity. So we had a small new development paper in PMM in a couple of years, how we could educate politicians in accounting. I don't know if politicians are interested, but we can make them get interested in that by teaching them the use of accounting information and not accounting per se. So teaching accounting could take different forms based on the subject that you want to address what you are doing.
Thank you. I think this round of discussion was on another side of very important aspect and teaching politicians. Maybe we also should think about teaching the mass media representatives who disseminate this information to the public. But this is, yeah, please.
Yeah, just on this point, I can bring my experience because we established a contact with the chambers of the parliament in particular. We did some dossier for them when we started to develop this reform in Italy. I personally had a contact with one of the parliamentary, and we developed together a dossier to inform the other parliamentary, and this was the start to raise their interest. And then, you know, you can continue on this, yeah, just to break the wall and then go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, if there are any last minute reflections, unless we have any other views, that we need to switch. We spent 22 more minutes on this session, but this was very effective, I believe. So Arman, over to you.
Thank you very much, friends, for very good discussion and all the contributors and listeners, active listeners. Now we're just taking our chairs and moving back to our tables, because this is the most important part of our session will be next steps, discussing about next steps.
We need to consolidate the chairs around the table.
Yeah, consolidate chairs around the tables, exactly. Friends, as many of our members are coming back and they are checking out, so our next session is about next steps. So when we talk, what is the plan is the forward. We will hear now from Adrian a big picture, what is overall expectations, where we are going to go. And when we talk about next step is two areas. One is about, it's EDUCOP. One is about the PULSAR next event potential topics, as we usually do. You can discuss and can raise from the tables. You don't need any stickers. Just you can take, I mean, we'll go around from the tables. You can say what, and you will go and what. And second, most important is technical assistance for your countries, because we have tables for each country. Please discuss, and that is, we expect each country to send us separate communicate via email what were your country priorities. So 2 topics to discuss around tables based on the inputs you have got during those 2 and 3 days. And now Adrian will give us a big picture.
I just wanted to say a few words to stress how important it is that we actually have follow-up on these events. These events are incredibly expensive, and funding for PULSAR is very limited, and donors are consistently pushing us to demonstrate results. So we really, really need, if we're going to be able to justify holding these events, we need to be able to demonstrate that the events have results in your countries. So we've been talking about consolidation. I don't expect any of you to leap to being United Kingdom. In fact, after the explanations you've heard today, you probably don't even want to be leaping to be the United Kingdom. But all of you have consolidation issues on your agenda. All of you do. I know you do. So what is it that you're going to, on the basis of the work that what you've been hearing over the last few days, what is it that you're going to do on your consolidation agenda? It's important that you say to us, we can hear from you what it is from these events that you're going to take back to your country and think about how you're going to implement it. Because that's something that we can then share with the donors and say, look, these events have real results in the real world. And that enables us to mobilize the funding to actually continue doing these kinds of things. I get the feeling that you actually like coming to these events. I get that sense. No, you don't. Oh, dear. Yes, okay, good. What a relief. So if we want to come to these events, we need to be able to demonstrate that they actually have an impact. So I count on all of you, each of the countries. What is it in your consolidation agenda that you're going to follow up on based on what we've heard here? The other part that's very important is that there's technical assistance from PULSAR. There's also other sources of technical assistance from the bank. Many of you have projects, many of you have specific country programs, and also complemented by this PULSAR program. So all of you can identify specific areas of technical assistance that you want to implement over the next few years. I think we could think in terms of 2 to 3 years as a reasonable time frame to think about specific work programs. Now, again, you don't have to show massive reforms. They can be very specific technical issues that you need to address. Please be very specific and identify what it is that you need in terms of support. Again, that helps us mobilize financing to help you deliver on your work programs. So we very much, the next session, I mean, for the next session, I think it's relatively short before lunch, to provide you with an incentive to actually get this done very quickly, is very important to us. And I hope that we'll get collaboration from all of you. First of all, in terms of identifying what you want to discuss at the next PULSAR, what you're going to do in terms of following up in terms of consolidation in your agendas, and what other areas of technical assistance you need over the next 2 to 3 years. So with that, I'll hand you back to Arman to provide any further guidance. So thank you.
Thank you, Adrian, for the big pictures. And now let's discuss around our tables. And again, we expect 2 points. One, what is the next event for PULSAR, our regional gathering? What are your top priorities you would like to focus on? And as we usually do in very transparent manner, we're going to vote collectively to see where the priorities are. You should have 3 dots each person. We don't validate. We know that even if you have 4 or 5, you will use 3 of those. And second, on your country level technical assistance, you will send us separately email, Ministry of Finance representative around the tables to PULSAR, to us, to Secretariat on your country priorities. Let's now allocate around 20 minutes for discussion, and then we will hear back from you. Thank you.
Colleagues, close the discussion as soon as possible. We'll start in 1 minute. Arman, they're ready to start. So let's start. Okay, colleagues, so let's start with who wants to start first? Let's start with Georgia. So you would be telling us about the prospective subjects that you have for the next PULSAR conference, and also the knowledge project.
Так. Что негатив ховна? Так. Нет.
Yes, go ahead.
We have a request to help us on concession assets accounting based on IPSASB 32, on measurements on tangible and intangible assets, including of internal production, internally produced. Training on new and updated IPSASB standards to help in consolidation of financial assets for local governments, and also to help or to develop, to provide assistance on practical cases of integration of consolidated financial reporting, but to do it using some specific cases as the example, as templates, as tables for conversion, and to help us and to send us the methodological guidelines with practical cases, practical examples, using practical examples on compiling reporting on sustainability, taking into account sectoral specificity. Thank you.
So Arman, these are the.
Yeah, just I'm taking on the screen, friends. It's, as you can see on the screen, please try excellent points not to repeat. Just we are coming with the new ones, and you will see on the screen.
Perfect, thanks. Okay.
The priorities are being typed on the screen, so please. Yes, Albania is ready. Yeah.
Moldova.
Thank you. One interesting subject for us is methodological guidelines for transitioning financial instrument, in particular liabilities of SOEs and public institutions who applied IFRS standards into general government consolidated financial statements. Another subject is accounting for provision and contingent liabilities, and implementing of accrual method or accrual budgeting.
Thank you. Okay, Albania. Yes, Aresa.
We have almost the same priorities and knowledge project, and also we have one priority regarding the asset inventory and evaluation. And as a knowledge product, it's an instruction on asset inventory and evaluation.
This is for PPs or any asset, intangible, tangible?
All kind of assets,
All
not
kind.
only PPPs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kosovo.
I would like to speak in Albanian, please.
That's fine.
The evaluation or assessment of the current accounting system. Another one is legislative amendments rather, to harmonize it with the IPSAS.
Yeah, so evaluation of current accounting system.
Can you clarify what do you mean?
Ndryshimet legislative dhe harmonizimi me IPSAS, si pikë dytë.
Yeah, so could you clarify what do you mean by evaluation of the current accounting system?
Can I will do?
Yes, sure.
It's necessary to have legislative changes and harmonization with IPSAS. Capacity and technology building.
Specifically what? Capacity and technology?
Capacity building.
Okay.
And second one. Second.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, go ahead.
National harmonization for consolidation of financial reporting.
You have more? Thank you. Armenia.
Thank you. First of all, let me thanks for this wonderful 3 days organizers. For our future event, Mr. Araverdian already mentioned in his presentation our expectation for PULSAR 2 program. First of all, it is training for municipality accountants, because as now we are in stage of implementation of accrual accounting rules, our problems also related in this implementation stage problem. We also would like to have knowledge products on accounting for heritage asset and natural resources. And the important one on infrastructure asset. We also can debate about accounting for infrastructure assets.
As a topic for the next event or as a knowledge product?
Yeah.
Okay.
About infrastructure asset, it also can be topic. We also very appreciate the format of last session of our event. In the next event, we maybe can have more such format of discussion to raise challenges each country face and the solutions and examples for another countries. I think that's all. If my colleague want to add.
Only one addition, so it will be very useful to have information about amendments in international education standard 234 concerning sustainability. Also, the amendments in ethical standards connected with sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. Montenegro.
Hello. We would put an emphasis on IT system, which is currently our biggest issue in Montenegro. We have a regulatory framework for accrual accounting implementation, and currently we are dealing with IT systems. So we would prefer if one of the subject would be IT system design with specific emphasis on harmonization of processes in public sector, including all special modules, modules for public debt, for tax administration modules, property register, public procurement system, budget execution, etc. That means all modules which we currently possess in public sector, and how to harmonize all these modules, how to design IT system which will be efficient enough for all accrual accounting processes. Thank you.
Just maybe to add for this first point, accounting of concession assets, maybe PPP also to add on this.
Okay. PPPs.
And I don't know, maybe to discuss about AI and using an AI, because we see that it's more and more discussion about use of this in accounting.
Thank you. Serbia, North Macedonia.
Hello, everyone. We currently have here representatives from the sector which supervises SOEs and the Treasury Directorate of the Treasury within the Ministry of Finance, and also representatives from the university. So we've had quite a long discussion on this topic. And as a representative of the sector supervising SOEs, I think that we need to help SOEs to create information and data which would be important or that could be used in consolidation on the government level, because without good data or information, we cannot have good consolidation. Whereas colleagues from the Directorate of the Treasury could also propose further topics to be discussed. Hello, everyone. I would just briefly like to reiterate and focus here on item number 4, which is the implementation of accrual accounting. So no matter how much we have discussed in previous conferences about the implementation of accrual accounting, not every country is moving in this direction at the same time. We currently are supposed to implement IPSAS on cash basis completely for the reports for 2025. However, any further guideline on accrual accounting is very welcome for us. Also, with regard to item number, well, the one on consolidation. So with regard to consolidation, I was very glad to hear that there are ready-made tools which can be used. This is something I found very interesting, and someday I would like us to have them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So accrual accounting and consolidation tools. Bosnia.
Thank you, and hello, everyone. I will just briefly say on behalf of Bosnia and Herzegovina what we propose for future topics. This would be the topic of the implementation of IPSAS related to asset management and liabilities of the SOEs. As for technical assistance, our proposal would be, if it is acceptable, to have a PULSE report for Bosnia and Herzegovina. And if not, we would propose this in principle, but definitely we should confirm this in the next week. And then, if the PULSE report is not acceptable, then we would definitely like to submit a new topic regarding the technical assistance in the coming period. Thank you.
Thank you. Azerbaijan.
So it was for country level technical assistance, which you will send by email. And on the PULSAR event, you are fine with the topics here? Yeah.
So, yeah, they are in principle fine with the topics.
Okay, good. Thanks.
We are interested in IPSA standard 18 reporting segments.
Yeah, just give me 1 minute. So what they pointed out about the SOE is
That's a knowledge product.
knowledge program. Again?
Can you repeat, please, on the prior topic on the, yes.
For the next meeting, the topic would be the implementation of IPSASs related to asset management and management of liabilities of the SOE sector. And for technical assistance, we are going to submit a proposal in the next week.
Okay.
Thanks.
IPSAS, okay.
Okay, apologies.
In our next seminar, so we would like to study IPSAS 18 and IPSAS 22, disclosure of information for government sector.
About the knowledge product? Okay, so 18 and IPSAS 18 and 22 and knowledge product, others. Tajikistan.
Thank you very much. In general, during our workshop, we discussed many aspects of the consolidation, especially why does it matters. But in the jurisdictions that and in the beginning of their journey in this direction, I think it's matter how to consolidate. So if it is possible, so we wanted to devote the topic on how to make the consolidation and especially how to include the PIP programs, I mean the public investment programs in our consolidation, and especially the customs and tax exemptions during the consolidation process.
Public investment management?
Public investment programs, how to consolidate, include them in our consolidation, especially when the projects are implemented by the PIUs, and how to include them during this. And especially the part of the tax and custom exemptions, accounting of the tax exemptions and the custom exemptions. Thank you.
Yeah, so deep dive on consolidation. You have any suggestions for the knowledge? Okay, so that's it, Arman. Moldova, did you speak? Did I miss somebody?
And so if it is done, then let me read because it's in English.
Ukraine.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. General problems on pulse assessment in the countries that had it, that the general problem was effective management of financial instruments. So we proposed to disclose this topic, effective management of financial instruments. In all countries, these indicators were quite low. Second question, we do support fully this approach. We looked at consolidation in detail. So one of the next stages, point one, would be concessions. Concessions and public-private partnerships. This is one of elements to be studied in detail. Concession standard for practical application, of course, and our suggestion, I don't know if colleagues support it or not, but we need to assess natural resources and heritage. We looked at this from PULSAR, but only superficially, and accounting for natural resources is very important for us. For other questions, we made already a request that we sent by email, and colleagues will add on the knowledge product. Thank you very much. I'd like to add for EDUCOP, we would like to have more detailed presentation of the role and place of higher education to train accountants and auditors. What is minimal set of competencies, or what should be included in higher education curriculum, and what should be given to continued professional development of accountants and auditors as professionals. Also, the question is, what competencies should be involved in higher education for sustainability reporting? Who do we need to train at level of higher education? What do we need to include in our educational programs? And third suggestion about use of artificial intelligence in education as we train accountants and auditors. In what way should we use artificial intelligence in higher education? Thank you.
And one more, maybe updating of our profile of accountant of public sector, which was prepared PULSAR some years ago.
So this is leading to the competency framework, I believe, more. Good.
Thank you.
Good. We can add 4 more lines. And probably one. So just as Aaron helped just to add more lines because we ended up with 18 priorities. And we will have separate 4 priorities for the knowledge products. As it is in English, let me just read it. So you have translation, and please note in your respective language. I mean, yes, there was a translation. Please note for priorities you are going to vote. You are going to have 3 dots, and you are going to stick, as you usually do, next to the number which you consider your priority. You can use 3 for one, or you can use 1 for different. So preferably using 1 for different, so we have better perspective understanding. So this is not prioritization. This is just listing. Please don't look into the numbers as prioritization. So first, accounting of concession assets and PPPs. Second, accounting of intangible assets. Third, this is training on IPSAS standards, which we usually do like updates, but including subnational government and LGUs, actually subnational local government units, same. Fourth, national state level consolidation, the whole of state level, including just to address translation we discussed because government, it may be narrower as Ross indicated with unrest. So we'll use national, the word national level consolidation, including consolidation of subnational government with practical experience and templates on consolidation financial statements, how to cover international financial institutions like the WorldBank projects, a treatment of tax and customs exemption. Actually, we can, it's more subtopic. For clarity, let's remove it so it will be covered anyway. Fifth, accounting for contingent liabilities. Sixth, implementation of accrual budgeting. That is and linked to public sector accounting. Seventh, asset inventory and management measurement valuation of assets. 8, legal and regulatory changes to harmonize with IPSAS. So the changes we need to do in legislation of our countries to harmonize with IPSAS, good practices. 9, infrastructure assets accounting. 10, sustainability reporting impact on education and ethics, including international education standards updates. 11, IT systems design with focus on the harmonization of processes, the scope of IFMIS, and integration with core and non-core IFMIS modules and other systems. 12, use AI in accounting, financial reporting, and consolidation. 13, implementation of IPSAS for assets liabilities managed by SOEs, probably IFRS, but still how we can implement IPSAS. This was the priority raised. Implementation of IPSAS 18 segment reporting and IPSAS 22 disclosure of financial information about general government sector. 15, financial assets. 16, heritage assets accounting. 17, competency framework for public sector accounting for higher education, university degree versus technician level, and what to include in the syllabus. And the last 18, use of AI for public sector accounting, education, and training, good practices and applications. These are the 18 priorities you have on the slide. Let me also just go through the knowledge products, and we have 4 knowledge products identified for your voting, please. First, guidelines on consolidation with templates and specific practical examples. So it's not broader, but specific how to consolidate and what are the templates, probably with reference to the chart of accounts respective tagging we discussed. Second, methodological guidelines for transition bridging tables between IFRS to IPSAS. So specifically refers to SOEs. We are preparing IFRS financial statements. Third, accounting of heritage asset and natural resources in terms of how to apply them, IPSAS. And fourth, guidance to SOEs to facilitate consolidation. That is probably linked to the first topic, but still whether like chart of accounts, how to unify the accounting policy, what is applicable, including when government follows cash-basis accounting in case of Serbia. Serbia raised that question. So we have 18 priorities on the screen and knowledge products. So now you have, you need just to vote. Please use 3 dots each, please. Come closer to the flip chart and just put the dots as usually we do. Thank you very much. Free, no more.
So everyone to have only 3 dots. If somebody does not have 3 dots, we can distribute more. Yeah, he won't. We just need to go back here. Yeah, okay, it's here, Fabian.
Friends, we hope you only use 3 dots, right? Not more, as we agreed. As a really, truly accountants and policymakers, you will not manipulate with the dots. Good. So we have 3 dots each voted, and now we can move forward with the counting. So what is the numbering? Can you just totals? We trust as there is a very old Soviet joke, it doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts. So or how it is counted. So Aaron, yes, please. Number 15. Financial assets. Number 1 is 15. Okay. Concession is number 1. Okay. What is the, yes. Okay, first one is 15.
Second voting down is 7.
7.
Four is 18. 5 is then next is 7. Next is 15. Next is 6. Next is 19.
Wow.
10 is 18. And 11 is 31. That's the priority. No, not 11, 31.
Wow.
12 is 10. Then next is 15.
15?
Yeah. Then 14 is 5.
5.
15 is 9. And next is 10.
Heritage assets, yes.
16.
17 is 16. And 9. Super. So we have, what is the top now? We have actually, IT is the highest one. IT system is 11. So it's clearly you voted for have IT systems designed with focus on harmonization, scope of IFMI's integration. This is, I think probably we can connect with 12 because we cannot talk probably about IT separately from AI. More or less, they are becoming more interconnected topics. So this is clearly a topic of our next event, which is got the most highest. Then we have, what is the next? Then we have number 4, which is national state level consolidation, including consolidation of subnational governments. So there is a still priority to understand how subnational government consolidates with practical experiences and templates. 18, right? Do I read correctly, friends? Sorry, infrastructure assets, it was 19. So infrastructure asset is number 2 and number 3 is a consolidation of subnational government. So we have 3 priorities noted, I think, for our next event. So this is about, sorry. So the overall conclusion is for the next event, it's IT, tools, and AI, 11, 12 together, and potentially we are talking about the infrastructure asset, which is 19. Are you fine with that? Fine. Yes, collectively, transparently, we made this. You made this decision. Great. And the knowledge products, let me just to put priority. So we have 11. So this is priority 1. Then we have this is priority 2, and then we had priority 3. Pardon? Number 10 is okay. Number 10 is also 18. Sustainability, okay.
Construction assets, concession and PPP.
The proposal is to have infrastructure assets, concession, and PPPs together. Do you agree with that? Excellent. So as a result, infrastructure assets, concession, and PPP is becoming 19 plus 15, 34 at even higher priority, right? 19 plus 15. So we have 34. Then it's becoming priority 1. Then IT systems priority. But then we can add here with the AI, then it's becoming 41. 10, 41. Okay, then it's same. Priority 2, priority 3. Are you fine with this, friends? Any other comments? So this is combined. Thank you very much for very good comments. So our priorities is the following. 41, it's IT system design and use of AI. Then our second priority, infrastructure assets, accounting of concession assets and PPPs. And if we manage for the next event more than 2 topics to be covered, but at least to work on, including virtually, it's national state level consolidation, including consolidation of subnational government. Thank you very much. Now, knowledge products.
Item 3 is IS 425.
Okay.
That's priority 1.
Okay. 25. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Item 4 is priority 2 with score of 21.
Which item 4?
Five.
Mm-hmm. 21. Mm-hmm.
And item 1 is priority 3 with score of 16.
Excellent. So then you expect us to work on accounting of heritage assets and natural resources as a priority. Ross, are you fine overall, like from the broader, more or less connects with other discussion, NEPSA's working group and Italy, we need Paolo, we need massive, because Italy is very advanced. They're very advanced on this topic. Excellent. So it doesn't mean we are going to Italy, but potentially when we talk about this topic, we will need Italian experience as well. Good. Any other remarks, friends? What? Super. People said super. So it's good that you are happy with your priorities. Thank you very much. So this is saved, accounted. Thank you, Arun, and thank you everybody for your priorities. Good. Now the time just for closing, and I'm passing the floor to Fabian. I can close this. And Arun, of course. Fabian, do you need this? Do you need this computer? No. Priorities? No. Computer priorities?
I'll just do that.
Yeah. You don't need priorities. Yes. Thank you.
Great. Yes, closing time already after 3 intense days. Quite impressive to see the resilience, a very large survival rate after going through all these standards. No, but really, seriously, thank you for coming. And I know it's really taking quite a lot of commitment from all these 12 country delegations, taking time off your very busy agendas. I mean, the countries I work with, I know how busy you guys are, working notably on the EU accession, all the acquis adoption, and so it's great that you really took the time and were really present here. Big thank you also to all the resource person. I think it was, as I mentioned, to Aman and the organizers. It's really great to see such brains, practitioners, standard setters, very experienced professionals from around the world on all aspects, on the standards, on the education, on how to apply that. So it really makes for very rich 3 days. Also, very much for your enthusiasm and engagement, as we see here, with all these dots and voting and participatory approaches. Also great to see that this committee of practitioners is expanding a bit as we go deeper and deeper on some of these topics. We talk about consolidation, but you need good quality data to be able to consolidate, right? And so that does require also reaching out and working with the colleagues in the different ministries, dealing with financials of local governments, dealing with financials of state-owned enterprises, their assets and liabilities. And so it's great that there was this consultation before. Some made it here, not all. So I guess it may require a bit more conversations also back at home. Also, really congratulations for tackling these very difficult topics of material fiscal risks. Usually that's in the later times of the reforms that we start addressing the more difficult aspects, but which are very timely because, as mentioned also yesterday and by Adrian at the outset, in this world of increasing uncertainties and volatilities, I think you guys are really the beacon of stability and transparency and credibility of public finances, because all these increased fiscal risks, contingent liabilities, and there's increasing risk aversion as well, right? And so that translates then into very concrete aspects such as increased risk premiums in bond ratings. Bondholders only see the downside risks. So I think the role of these professionals, of these accountancy professions, financial reporting is more important than ever to really bring a bit more transparency and assurances and trust to that. So I'll try. I've been asked to attempt a summary, so that's actually quite a challenge because so many topics have been discussed, and I think we'll refer to AI to actually summarize that much better. But maybe just let me share a few reflections of what we heard. My takeaways is that we discussed really the very practical aspects and benefits, so not just the why it matters, but also the practical aspect of how to do it, the reform journey of consolidating financial statements, notably from subnationals, the country context. So indeed, it does matter how federal or unitary the government is, what is the actual level of control over these entities, but also the macro fiscal impact. So looking a bit at materiality, so not necessarily spending too much efforts on every line item, but really looking at starting with what's material, not just from a financial perspective, and we also heard that yesterday, but also from a strategic perspective. Maybe some assets are a bit more strategic than others, some liabilities a bit riskier than others, and also from a reputational aspect, because the intangible assets are equally important. We also discussed the current accounting frameworks, how they're evolving, the links between IFRS and IPSAS, the compatibility or bridging tables we need. Lots of sharing on tools and techniques for financial data consolidation tools, data warehouses, the differences between two, the flexibility you have in information systems and IFMISs, and that we shouldn't expect too much from the IFMISs either, and that this can be supplemented with other tools. The importance also, and that's coming a bit from the EDUCOP also, of university accounting curriculars, PAO professionals just earlier today as well. The importance of training, very practical vocational training aspects. I think that was also very useful. But also the prerequisites to be able to do consolidation, right? Indeed, so that's, as Adrian mentioned, it's a journey, it's a high cost, but at least starting with working on the prerequisites, I think these are no regret reforms. And so this really means having comprehensive, reliable and digital asset registries with robust PPE and asset valuation methodologies. So not surprised to see that in the list here. And so these are indeed top priorities, because these are indeed reforms which involve many stakeholders, and therefore the difficulty and the challenge of coordinating all these aspects. But also the need for timely, granular and high quality financial statements of SOEs. It's not a given. And so particularly that's also something that comes out of the different ROSCs we do, looking a bit at how IFRS standards are applied in practice. There's indeed this expectation that the state leads by example, and so that we shouldn't have so many compliance issues as we find. And oftentimes the devil is in the details, is really in the notes of how these different standards are interpreted. So great to see that there have been reform efforts also in terms of automating these notes, simplifying these notes using AI to check on the quality thereof. Also, I think one aspect which was discussed and presented in all the good country examples is thinking of the users. So who are the users of our financial statements? Obviously, first and foremost, the management of public finances at government level, but also parliament, which also need to be equipped to understand, interpret these financial statements. And if it's 14,000 pages, likelihood that they will actually read them is limited, right? So really how we can simplify, present that, thinking also about the citizens, the investors, the bondholders, and how we can really use AI to facilitate that. So interesting examples of chatbots helping to analyze all this data. And I think the more demand there is, the more support there is for these reforms as well. So there's this positive spillover effect. Lots of discussions also on IT systems and platforms and COTS versus custom-made and integration interoperability. So also not surprised that there's a need for more. Indeed, many of our countries are going through these reforms, as upgrading legacy systems or developing new systems, integrating within country, but also among countries, notably on the EU accession path. The potential, but also risks of artificial intelligence and how it will certainly not replace, but augment chartered public accountants. And the important to keep this, the human oversight and accountability, but there's really a lot of potential of making your life easier and facilitating some of this recurrent task, particularly with these huge volumes and increasing complexity of public finances. Recommendations for next steps. So please, as Adrian mentioned also earlier, please do review all the insights. I know there was a lot of substance that has been downloaded. So all this will be shared as usual for the CFRR on the website as well. But please do take time maybe to go through that, but also share that maybe with the colleagues who were not able to make it here. So I think the more we share knowledge, the more there's spillovers, the more impact we have. And particularly on these topics, which are government-wide, involve many stakeholders. I think that would be great if maybe in the countries there could be restitution workshops and discussions to see what does it mean for the country before you come back, to us in terms of your technical assistance, so that it addresses also the originators of all this financial data you will be receiving. Please do connect with Arman and Arun, whom I really thank at this occasion for this organizing this amazing event. And so you can also have a discussion in terms of what technical assistance can be done, how we can maximize the synergies, if we have similar demands from different countries, if we have other bilateral programs, sometimes technical assistance, sometimes investments, if there's some ICT aspects, so that really we make the most of all we have to support you along the way. And a special thanks to Austria and Switzerland, who are actually sponsoring and supporting this engagement, PULSAR too, and for Anara and Katja, who actually made it possible here, working non-stop. Yes, that's a standing ovation, no? And I wish them a couple of nights sleep after these 3 days, and wishing you a safe return home, and thank you very much.